Thomas out high, wrist shot on goal, rebound, they score! Point number 500 for Brandon Saad. It's his first goal of the year. Knocks it free for Thomas, back to Kyrou, right on, rebound, they score! Brandon Saad has two. The Blues are back within one. It's a 3-2 game.
You know, you're seeing guys make some clean exit plays, advancing, you know, heads up hockey and some real good hockey. You were finishing around that cage a lot tonight as well. So there's definitely some things we can clean up, but there's things we do like as well.
That's what it sounded like last night right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN, as Steve Ott talks after the game. Yes, they lost that game. You may not have noticed that based upon our return there. I thought they played a good game. I come out of most of these losses this year, Alex, thinking to myself, man, feel better about the Blues. It's a weird way to operate, but I think this is a pretty good team. I don't think they're perfect. They have some flaws. Obviously, they're not perfect offensively by any stretch. The special teams need to get better. But, man, you go out there against a team that's undefeated right now that knows exactly who they are and what style of game that they want to play. This is now 3 straight games that you go up against an opponent with the Islanders, Carolina, and now Winnipeg, who knows exactly who they are, how they want to play, and you've been right there with each and every one of them. 1, 2 of the 3. Feel pretty good about that one last night. Alex, what was your biggest takeaway from the 3-2 loss on home ice yesterday?
I thought they played with the Winnipeg Jets with the exception of a 10-minute span that they allowed 3 goals. To your point, last year, 3 games in, the Blues got shellacked by Arizona 6-2. It was hard to walk away from any game in the early portion of last season and being like, hey, this team might be good. You lost in a shootout, you won in a shootout, and then you just get spanked by the Arizona Coyotes. Now this season, you played better than the Winnipeg Jets in the first period. It was the second best period all season to the San Jose Sharks in terms of scoring chances and high danger scoring chances.
Damn.
Second to the San Jose Sharks, what you did in the first period against the Winnipeg Jets. It sucks you only got 1 goal, but that's Connor Hellebuck for you. Second period, you started off aggressors once again. You take back-to-back penalties, that's playing with fire for a team that's clipping at 50% on the power play, and then for the rest of that period, you just get hesitant. In 10 minutes, Winnipeg capitalizes. But the third period, once again, the Blues are the aggressors, just could not break through. You aren't supposed to be on the same level as the Winnipeg Jets. You're supposed to be better than the Sharks, better than the Kraken, better than the New York Islanders. But the Carolina Hurricanes, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Winnipeg Jets, you're not supposed to be on the same level because all of those teams are in cup windows. But all 3 of those teams, you played toe-to-toe with until the last whistle. And last night, a couple of bounces, and you're talking about potentially going to overtime with them. So I was impressed at how they forechecked. I was impressed at how they got to the front of the net and owned that net front presence with Connor Hellebuck. And I was very impressed by how they played defensively of really limiting them in terms of their scoring chances.
Yeah, I thought they played well last night as well. Now, I thought there was times where they were shooting from the outside a lot, but you know what? They're trying to get volume on net. And I think for the most part, their goal is to get rebounds, as we saw.
I actually prefer more of the shooting from the outside.
You didn't like the 10 shots a game last year?
What I find so funny is they scored 2 goals on the doorstep standing in front of Connor Hellebuck. How is nobody on that bench going, guys, this is how we score goals on Connor Hellebuck?
I mean, my frustration was more they're not putting the puck on the net. Like I think they had enough guys standing in front of the net. The problem was not getting it there. Well, the problem was like Ryan Suter, who I thought mostly had a decent game last night. I didn't think he was like a problem for them in that game. There was that one play that I will not forget where it's him and was it Saad going back and forth playing tic-tac-toe. It's like, all right, man, they got the opportunity that they were looking for, and Suter had a wide open chance at the net. At a minimum, put it on net, and to your point, Alex, somebody's there, create a mess in front of Connor Hellebuck. Instead, he tries 1 too many passes, and it was literally 1 too many. Brandon Saad play gets broken up, and then it goes the other direction. They don't get a shot on goal after that. Those were the kinds of plays, and there were probably 3 or 4 of them over the course of the game where you just got to put the puck on the net. It happens on the power play occasionally. It certainly happens for them at 5-on-5. This is still a team that is a bit hesitant at times. I don't think they're trying to get cute. I think they just want to make the best play instead of a good play. Sometimes you just have to settle for a good shot on net and just allow somebody that's in front of the net to go ahead and put it home. But last night, they did give up a few too many of those opportunities.
Yeah, they did. Way too passive, specifically in that third period where you're looking for that perfect play. And I think that's partially what's gone wrong with the power play as well. But defensively, that 10-minute span, you just got away from what you were doing. And look, that's going to happen. You're going to have a couple of bad shifts. You hope your goaltender can save you in that spot, and a couple of shots get past Jordan Binnington last night. But just watching that 10-minute span where Winnipeg scored those 3 goals, it's just the Blues got too hesitant in their own zone. They started backing off. They let Winnipeg get in too easily, and the next thing you know, they're cycling the puck, putting it in the back of the net. Whereas the first period, every single time Winnipeg tried to enter, Blues had 3 guys standing them up at the blue line. So they saw what worked against Winnipeg. You get away from it for a little bit. You know you could get back into the hockey game. They did. They made it a 1-goal game. It's hard not to walk out of these games right now, even with the Blues lose, and look at it and say, man, they're building something that I don't know what it is yet, but it's definitely not what the last 2 seasons were.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. It's where the Graveyard Chat is up and available to you from the 636. Guys, to me, their issues feel a lot more fixable this season than they were the last couple of years. That's what I'm trying to get to here. That's a better way to phrase it than what I had earlier. When I watch the Blues right now, I see a team that knows who they are. I see a team that understands how to win, which is a big part of it in the NHL or any professional sports. And I see a team that's making mistakes that are fixable. Instead of it being, oh boy, they don't have the personnel. Like there's no fixing this. It's just not going to work. I feel that way about the second line center, and we'll talk about the top line center here in a minute.
Whoa.
But I feel that way about the second line center situation where they might just not have a player that's capable of being in that specific role. But other than that, man, I don't really have a whole lot of massive question marks about where you're at currently. Like, you got pretty good wingers up and down this lineup. Not elite, pretty good though. I think you're really good defensively right now. I feel pretty good about just about everybody and where they're slotted in. And I think you've got 2 good goaltenders. That is not how I have felt about the team since 2022. 2022 was the last time that I felt like, okay, you're pretty good at just about every spot.
Yeah. Walking off the ice last night and listening to Steve Ott talk, I was expecting Steve Ott to be frustrated because the game gets away from you when you're leading and you don't capitalize on it. But, man, Steve Ott was pretty positive in the sense of we see where our issues are, and it's just a matter of looking at the tape and fixing it. And that's the thing about this Blues team. Last year, 2 years ago, they did not have the ability to adapt. Every single time they'd say, we need to start off better. And then what happens? They'd get outscored 4-1 in the first period. You started this homestand losing to the Minnesota Wild, where both Bannister and Steve Ott said too much terrestrial hockey, not going to the front of the net, too much perimeter. Look at how that homestand grew. Carolina Hurricanes, you scored those 4 goals with net front presence. Last night, you dominated the front of the net against the Winnipeg Jets, found a way to get inside of that defense. That's the ability to adapt in 3 games compared to last year where it felt like we were talking an entire season to adapt with issues that they were having in games.
All right, we do have an update from Blues Skate today from Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider for The Athletic, and here on 101 ESPN. He said Blues practice is underway. Robert Thomas is not on the ice this morning. He blocked a shot early in the 3rd period against Winnipeg, left the game. He did have x-rays last night. We do not have any update on how those went just yet, but the update that we do have is that he's not out there at practice. We also have another update from practice. Jake Neighbors also not on the ice this morning. So
he blocked a shot too.
Yeah, he blocked a shot in the same shift.
Good news on either of those fronts. Robert Thomas, I didn't expect him to be at practice today either way. At a minimum, him being held out of the entire 3rd period basically suggested it's not going to be great.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what this is. Obviously, we'll find out probably within the next hour or so. But, Alex, if this is any kind of an extended absence, we don't know what's up with Neighbors, but if this is an extended absence for Robert Thomas, what does that mean for the Blues?
This is tough because you're the Blues fan and you're like, I want him to be good.
Should I cue it's the end of the world?
Kind of. I mean, I don't want to get like too drastic, but you're bleeped. I mean, this is a guy that does everything for you. Now, they looked fine yesterday. It felt like at times that offense was like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? What do you do? Because you don't have Robert Thomas who can make those passes. This is a pack mentality group. They always have that pack mentality, and you push a Pavel Buchnevich up a spot. You push Shen up a spot. I would imagine Oscar Sundqvist comes back into the lineup, and you've got your center depth there. But you're losing a guy that plays the penalty kill, the power play, even strength, gets the toughest matchups, is really good, like one of the best in the faceoff dot. This is, if it's an extended absence, this is a massive hole. He was probably the most He's the biggest player, the most impactful player that you can't lose from your lineup. And I'm saying that over Jordan Binnington and Colton Parayko. So, man, if this is like a 4 to 8 week thing, you're in trouble.
That's how I feel as well. I don't think Robert Thomas has played his best hockey this season. I think he would admit as much. I think they've really struggled to get any kind of chemistry on that top line so far this season. I think the only guy that he's really shown that with is Pavel Buchnevich thus far. And he's still such an indispensable piece from this team. And it goes back to why I think we all, at least me and T-Bone, had Sonny Gray as the #1 most indispensable Cardinal heading into the season. There's just nobody else that can do what he can do. Sonny Gray was the only frontline starting pitcher that the Cardinals have. Robert Thomas is the only top 6 center that the Blues currently have on the roster. I know they have another guy that plays in the top 6 currently, and Pavel Buchnevich. They have one top 6 center currently on the roster.
Yeah.
So,
and to your point of
a massive loss.
To your point of him not having a good start to the season, he's still a point per game player. So, like, that's how critical he is to your team. I mean, last night, that was all your offense.
20 minutes a night.
Yeah.
And that's without really being on the penalty kill this year. So, like, the vast majority of that is 5-on-5 this season.
And this isn't an easy road trip to not have your #1 center because you got Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. You've got the Montreal Canadiens. You've got Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators. You've got Matvei Michkov and the Philadelphia Flyers.
And even after you get back, you got Toronto and Tampa Bay again. It ain't easy.
So the hope is that it's a stinger. I would imagine probably that's the hope with Neighbors as well, because Neighbors finished that game. It's a stinger. You let it heal for a little bit, and then you're good to go on Wednesday.
He's Alex and T-Bone on BK. If you guys want to get involved in the show today, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to do so. Again, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. The YouTube cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Craig Berube. How about that, boys? Alex with the big-time guests today booked for us. The head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, former St. Louis Blues head coach, joins us next here on BK and Ferrario. Well, we do have the update on Robert Thomas, and it's not a good one. The St. Louis Blues just announced that the team has placed forward Robert Thomas on injured reserve. He has a fractured ankle after blocking the shot last night, scheduled to be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Alex, you said Jaden Schwartz has dealt with this in the past?
Yeah, that October 2015, he fractured it early on in the season, and he was out 12 weeks. Now, he did come back, played in the postseason for the Blues, but a significant injury when you're talking about an ankle for hockey players.
Yeah, not what you want. Again, if you missed it, Robert Thomas out for at least the next 6 weeks, placed on IR today by the St. Louis Blues after blocking that shot last night. We'll be talking about that certainly throughout the day today. We discussed it a bit right now with Craig Berube as he joins us via the 101 ESPN hotline, head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, previously, of course, here with the St. Louis Blues, Stanley Cup champion. Craig, we appreciate the time as always. I don't like starting out with such a somber note, but Robert Thomas, a guy that you know very well, placed on IR with that fractured ankle. As a coach, how do you deal with something like this when you lose one of your best players for an extended period of time?
Oh, it's definitely very tough losing a player of his caliber and what he means to the team. You know, it's always difficult, and you just got, everybody's got to man up, and everybody, got to get, guys that get an opportunity to step in there and play a bigger part, bigger role, and you just got to use your team depth and make sure you're just playing a real good team game to help out, because he's a heck of a player. I feel bad for him. I really do.
Craig, I got to imagine, too, as a coach, when you walk into the locker room, the main focus is making sure that the entire locker room doesn't get down on the situation, because recognizing that, yes, you are losing such a good player, but, man, there's still a lot of hockey to be played.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of hockey to be played. That's where everybody's got to really step up and play a real good team game together, and, grind through it all. Got to grind through it.
So, Craig, again, sucks to start on such a somber note, but the main reason we wanted to have you on is, of course, the St. Louis Toronto facing off for the first time this season, your new squad. How has it been with the Toronto Maple Leafs? What's this transition been like for you?
It's been good. I mean, I spent a lot of time here this summer and stuff just to get acclimated with everything and get to know everybody. It's, it's a great organization, first class, and people are really good. People are first class, and I'm very happy with everything so far. The team, great group of guys that I get to work with every day that work extremely hard and are very dedicated players.
Craig, you've done this in the past, right? You got teammates that you're going up against from your past or anything like that. What's it going to be like coaching against the St. Louis Blues when you know so many of these guys and you had them as a part of your team for such a long time?
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's some feelings for sure that are going to go into it. And but once that, puck drops and you get playing, you're just focused on your team and what's going on, and it'll go away. But, before the game and, things like that, there'll be some feelings for sure. Spent a lot of time there with a lot of guys, the organization, and a lot of great memories there.
Craig, you've done this a few times now. You've been with a team. You've gone to a new team from Philadelphia to St. Louis, from St. Louis to Toronto. What are the challenges as a new head coach for a team when you're stepping in?
Well, I think just trying to get your message across to the team, your philosophy, things like that more than anything. That's, always a little bit of a work in progress. But, I thought that we did a good job with that in the summertime and then throughout training camp. And it's really benefited us, in my opinion. Really liked our game so far this year, other than last night. That was a bad one. But, we played pretty strong hockey here so far. And it's been a change here for these guys with the philosophy and how we're going to do things and how we're going to play. But, they bought in so far, and it's been a pretty good buy-in.
What was the biggest change that you've implemented so far, Craig?
I think just a different style of, playing more north hockey, playing a more grinding style, working in the offensive zone, grinding teams down, wearing them down, defensive structure, checking, things like that. I think, this team's scored a lot of goals over the years, and they have the capability of doing that. And I think they're still, we're still trying to find our way at times how to produce this certain style.
Craig, how difficult is that to implement that kind of a style? Because it's not easy, right? It hurts literally and physically. Like it's a difficult style to play over time. But we've seen when you get to the playoffs, that is the style that wins, and it wins time and time and time again. It feels, at least from the outside looking in, that you arrived in Toronto at the right time. This is a group that has gone through those hardships in the postseason, so I would imagine it's a little easier to get some of that buy-in, but you're there every day. What is that like? How difficult is it to get the buy-in?
Yeah, it hasn't been that hard, I don't think, because our leadership has really bought into it, and they're leading the way. Our captain is, he's extremely dedicated player, hardworking guy in practice, in games. I mean, he gives everything he's got every shift. So, he's a great guy to lead the way, and, people follow him. He's got good influence.
So, Craig, just speaking of that North style of hockey, for some time, it was 4 or 5 years ago, it felt like the league was trending more towards speed, the ability to outskate your opponent. It seems there still is a place for this brand of hockey in the NHL. Is that correct?
Well, it's not in what you're saying, you can still outskate your opponent, and it's obviously speed does matter, and it's a big part of the game. It's just outskating your opponent and using your speed in the right way. That's the only difference, to be honest with you. We don't want to be making so many East-West plays. We want to make North plays, and we really want to put pressure on the other team and really make them make mistakes. That's what we're trying to do.
We're talking to Craig Berube for another couple of minutes here on 101 ESPN. Head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, previously, of course, Stanley Cup champion here with the St. Louis Blues. Craig, I got to ask you about Austin Matthews. I mean, he's one of the best players in the NHL, if not the very best player in the NHL. What is it like for you as a coach to watch him go about his work day to day? And for us that don't get to see that, what is something that you've learned in your experience watching that everyday effort from Austin Matthews?
Yeah, special player for sure. And, I don't think anybody understands the work this guy puts in. And it starts in the off season. I went and seen him in June in Arizona, and he's on the ice 4 days a week for an hour and a half skating. The day I went and seen him, he's at the rink already on the ice with people and going through things and just trying to get better. And, he brings that to practice every day. The intensity he practices with and effort that he puts into practice every day is pretty incredible. And that's why he's such a special player. I mean, he has ability and he's talent and he's big. But it's the work he puts in that he wants to be better and he wants to get better all the time.
Does that leak off into his teammates in the locker room when they see that type of work ethic?
Definitely. I mean, like I said, he's a great captain because of that. And, he has influence that way, and the influence rubs off on everybody else.
Craig, final one from me. You've coached in the Western Conference. You've coached in the Eastern Conference. What's the biggest difference that sticks out to you when those two teams meet up with each other?
Well, I think the West is more of a territorial game. Teams are a little bit heavier normally out West. Now, we only played the LA Kings in the Western Conference, I believe. The East it's quick transition game here in the East. A lot of speed in the East. A lot of back and forth in the East, is how I put it.
Before we get you out of here, Craig, we've been enamored by the performance of new Blues defenseman Philip Broberg. I don't know if you've had any opportunity to watch any of the Blues yet this year. You guys just got off the game last night, so I don't know how the scouting has gone for you for this upcoming game against the Blues. But if you have, what have you seen from Philip Broberg, the new young defenseman for the Blues?
Yeah, I watched him quite a bit in the playoffs last year, and real good skater and puck mover. I thought he was excellent in the playoffs last year for Edmonton. So, I knew that they were getting a very good player. I mean, he's the kind of guy that, whatever the reason he wasn't playing before, I don't know those reasons, but he's definitely coming to his own last year in the playoffs and has carried it over to the Blues. So Doug did a great job of, scoping those things out and making them qualifying offers, and he's gotten himself a couple of real good players there.
Craig, I can't say thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us here in St. Louis. Like I told you in the text, every Blues fan listening right now loves hearing from Craig Berube. So thanks again throughout your busy schedule for making some time for us. And I'm looking forward to that standing ovation you'll get in 2 weeks when you're here in St. Louis.
You got it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on. It's always great to talk to you guys.
There you go. Craig Berube, Blues, former Blues head coach, now with the Toronto Maple Leafs. As his team will be taking on the St. Louis Blues tomorrow night. I almost called him a Blues coach.
Not the Blues coach.
No, not the Blues coach.
Now
former
with Toronto.
Stanley Cup champion with the St. Louis Blues.
So shockingly enough, it's gone pretty well for him so far in Toronto. Who could have seen that one working out for him?
I almost texted him because last night they played Columbus and they lost 6-2, and I was like, hey, Craig, if you want to do it, I understand. But I understand Craig is a stand-up guy, and the moment I reached out to him and just explained to him, like, people in St. Louis love hearing from you, he was all on board jumping on with us. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this matchup, especially now without Robert Thomas on the ice. I want to get back into that, Alex, because if you missed it at the beginning of our conversation with Craig Berube, Robert Thomas, the Blues have announced, is going to be out for at least the next 6 weeks with a fractured ankle. Want to get your guys' reaction to that? 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line, plus YouTube chat, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. How do the Blues handle this? We'll talk about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friend and insurance agent, Tracy Bibb, taking care of you and your family when it comes to your car insurance. And she's reminding people right now that, look, rates are rising throughout the area, whether it's in Missouri or Illinois, for your car insurance, for your home insurance. But she's also telling you that right now is the perfect time to call Tracy Bibb, because if you've got roof damage, now's the time where you can get some discounts on your insurance coverage to replace that. Or on the car side, if you've had previous accidents, Tracy Bibb and her team at Allstate are able to take care of you. Or some insurance agencies aren't willing to do that if you've had prior accidents on your reports. Just give Tracy a call today. Tell her you heard me talk about it here on 101 ESPN, and she will walk you through the entire process. She's always making sure she's trying to save you money, and you get the personal attention that you need from your insurance agent. A lot of people have probably never even spoken to their insurance agent. Tracy is always there for you. 314-328-4260. Again, that's 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
Tanner Hendrickson here at the Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues fell to the Winnipeg Jets 3-2, and they lost Robert Thomas in that game, as the St. Louis Blues have announced that he has a fractured ankle and will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Blues will be back in action tomorrow night when they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 6. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed the news, Robert Thomas is going to be out for at least the next 6 weeks. Then he will be reevaluated. It's a fractured ankle after he blocked a shot last night in the third period. We're talking about that right now. If you guys want to get involved, it's 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. There has been an update. This comes from Matthew DeFranks, who covers the Blues for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Here is what the Blues are doing at practice today. It's worth noting, Jake Neighbors also not skating. Alex, with the way that they've gone about these things, my guess, and this is just reading between the lines, is that Neighbors will probably play tomorrow night, and this is more management for him than it is anything else, because they have Oscar Sundqvist playing on the top line. I'm going to, again, go out on a limb here.
Sonny can do it.
I don't think that's the way they're going to do it tomorrow night, so this feels like a placeholder situation. They also have Nathan Walker on the top power play unit. Again, I'd be surprised if that's the way they go about it, so it feels more placeholdery for both of those, but the thing that people really want to know, who's centering the top line right now? The answer is Braden Shin. It's Shin, Saad, and Sonny, Jake Neighbors, as your top line right now. Texier, Booch, and Kyrou, oh boy, is your second line as of today. Bolduc, Holloway, and Joseph is your third line. So they've got Holloway centering that third line. He'll bump down as Shin bumps up. And then it's Torpo, Foxa, and Kapanen as your fourth line. The real reason why I think that Neighbors is going to play tomorrow night, Walker is your extra forward and is playing on the top power play unit at morning skate today. So that's the way that they have constructed things. Alex, I'll kick this thing over to you. What do you make of that? What do you think of the way that they've gone about it so
I think
far?
it's the best way you can go without Robert Thomas. I mean, you're making something out of nothing right now because you don't have Robert Thomas, and he's not going to have him for a while, so you've got to find the proper line combinations. And, I mean, Texier, Booch, Kyrou is probably the one that everyone's going to be looking at, but that was the line combination in Seattle to where Jordan Kyrou had 2 goals in that game. So, you know, maybe you can get back to some chemistry with those guys. I thought Texier was pretty noticeable last night.
I thought he looked good.
You're playing Kyrou back with Pavel Buchnevich, which, to what we talked about yesterday, prior to Kyrou and Thomas being put back together, that's when he was a 6-point player in 3 games and was a +4. So maybe you got the best with Kyrou and Pavel Buchnevich. I don't mind the Shen as the top line center. Here's what I was going to say coming into the show before Robert Thomas got hurt. They've been using Shen, Holloway, and Joseph like a top line. They've been playing like a top line, generating offense, playing close to 18 minutes a night. I shouldn't say top line, like a second line. So it sucks that you have to break up Holloway and Joseph because that line had the best chemistry of them all, but you need Holloway to be the centerman right now. So at least it provides you depth. I'm looking at all 3 of these lines, and all 3 of them have the potential. But right now, this team has not been able to generate offense. I will say this, though. It's scary because you lose Robert Thomas and you're thinking this is going to be awful for 6 weeks. Typically, when teams lose a player like this, like Berube just told us, that's when everybody kind of knuckles down for the first few games.
For a couple of games, yeah.
For a couple of games, and then the exhaustion sets in. That's where you're going to have to guys step up to the plate.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. There's just no good answer for it. I don't think this is going to be the way that they end up shaking out. I don't know what the final combinations will be. This is 6 weeks, so we're going to see probably many different versions as we saw it to begin this season while they try to figure out, okay, what's the best way to go about this thing? I also wonder, is Sonny ready, or is Sonny going to still need some more time? Because if Sonny's still going to need some more time, that's how you end up with this combination. Well, if Sonny's ready to go, though, if they think Sonny could be back sooner rather than later, I do wonder if what you see is Sonny come in as the fourth line center. Potentially Foxa moves up a little bit into that third line capacity, and then you can construct things that way. Because Holloway on the wing does allow you to do some things a little differently, but that's a big part of the potential roster construction.
I think by the time you get to the end of this 6 weeks timetable, you're there right away. Sonny's, you're not going to put him at the center position. You're going to slow play this one because you don't want him to come back unless he's ready. You'll put him on the wing. My guess is he would go in for a Kapanen and be on your fourth line wing with Foxa and Toropchenko if he plays against the Maple Leafs. But I mean, Bannister's
good
made
to see Torpo back, by the way.
Yeah, Bannister's made it pretty clear that they want to make sure that they don't rush Sonny back in because he really hasn't had a whole lot of contact since recovering from this injury. So I think probably tomorrow that's what your line combinations are going to look like. Neighbors is in for Sundqvist there, and those are the combinations you build with. I don't mind it because I thought Buch, Kyrou, and Texier were good in that first game together. And then Texier got hurt. You had to jumble them up a little bit, but they performed with Bolduc on their wing.
Can I get to one other thing from the line combinations that I wanted to discuss with you?
Sure.
Have you seen what the defensive pairings are?
Glanced at them. I glanced at them, and I thought I just saw the same line combinations.
Nope.
Oh, this is
Sure
exciting.
didn't. Suter and Parayko, Broberg and Falk, Joseph and Perunovic.
Oh, I changed my mind. It's so exciting.
Yeah, that's not good, but I know what they're doing. I mean, Kessel had a couple of bad turnovers in that game
He
last
also
night.
had one of the biggest plays of the game.
Got to get guys reps, so they tell us.
No.
By the way, this is not the game that I want him playing against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, you're talking about a Berube team.
If you make a turnover in your own zone, it's going to be a goal.
Well, but on top of that, you just heard Berube talk about how he's tried to implement north-south style hockey with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You already know they got the skill, and now they play with the physicality. This is a game Matt Kessel plays in versus the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Probably not.
I did not see that, and frankly, I'm kind of glad because I probably would have been a little bit more upset coming into this segment.
Oh, come on, let it out now.
No, I don't want to.
I just
You should.
It hurts.
Come on, man.
Look, but
Just
again,
play Matt Kessel every night.
I don't understand why he's
play
been
him
out of the
every
lineup. This will be, what, the
the
second or
time.
third time already?
I'm with you. But again, if he was a 30-year-old veteran, you could look at it and you'd be the same way people were talking about Nick Leddy. You've made a couple of mistakes and they've gone in the back of your net. But he's not. He's a younger player that you're hoping to build with. This goes to what Joey talked about where you're going a sprint versus a marathon and you're in the middle of that. You don't sit Matt Kessel to get reps for Scott Perunovic. Unless Kessel's dealing with something. But he's on the ice, so it's hard for me to sit there and say he's dealing with something.
Whatever. I'm done getting...
Oh, you done now? Because Thomas is out for 6 weeks. It's over?
No, not that. Like, I got upset about the Kapanen thing, and Kapanen's played more than fine since being inserted into the lineup. Maybe Perunovic goes out there and has, like, 3 assists in their next game. I would bet against it, but maybe.
Well, I would bet against that one as well. What was the stat I threw at you yesterday? Kapanen scored 15 goals with the Blues, and 5 of those 15 have been game winners.
Yeah, sweet.
It's a star player right there.
Yeah,
By the way,
I've
gotten like 3 messages right now that you need to call up Dalibor Dvorsky. This is not the situation you call up Dalibor Dvorsky. You don't do it out of
desperation.
Well, you also don't do it when you lose your number 1 centerman and say, hey, we lost our top guy. We need you up. That's what Doug Armstrong talked earlier in the season about. We don't want to ruin a player or hurt a player. That's hurting a player, putting him in this position.
Yeah, there's no need to do that. This is something that if Dalibor Dvorsky was ready to go, if he was ready to be a part of the NHL club, he'd be here. But he's not. So you don't force him into this mix just because you have it out of necessity. That's something the Cardinals would do. That's not something that the Blues are going to do. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to some questions and answers here next on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for questions and answers. If you guys missed the news of the day, Robert Thomas out for the next 6 weeks at a minimum. They're going to reevaluate in 6 weeks. This could be an even longer injury with a fractured ankle after he blocked a shot last night for the St. Louis Blues in the third period. Robert Thomas out for at least the next 6 weeks.
I do want to clarify because I said earlier Schwartz was out 12 weeks. He had surgery, and at least it was not specified in that message that Thomas needs surgery. So that's the positive of this one, not needing surgery. Otherwise, you would be talking about a little bit more time.
Worth noting, Jake Neighbors also not on the ice earlier today for morning skate, but it does look like they're using placeholders for where he would typically be in the lineup. That feels more like an optimistic thing, where maybe this is just a, hey, he's not ready to go today, get him a day off his feet, let's see what he's looking like tomorrow. So, the top line is going to be taken on by Braden Shin. He, at least today at Morning Skate, was the top line center. That's where we're at with that. If you guys have any questions, now it's time to get them in on the Air Comfort Service X line. This one comes from the 314. Get a little college football in here. Guys, do you think that a 2-loss Texas A&M team, with their second loss coming against Texas or LSU, would get into the college football playoff over a 1-loss Missouri team? Interesting.
I would say the 1-loss Missouri team gets in because they beat Alabama.
Man, but at that point, this is not going to make anybody happy. Alabama as a win is not going to look the same after Missouri beats them. You know why? Because they will now have 3 losses on the season, including a loss against Vandy. It's possible they lose next week, as we're 2 weeks, I guess, from now, against LSU. That game is on the road, and then you would have a 4-loss Alabama team.
Yeah, you're right.
Probably Texas A&M. I think Missouri will. Let me say this another way to be a little stronger. I believe there is a 0% chance that a 1-loss Mizzou team from the SEC is left out of the college football playoff. No chance of it. If they lose 2 games, I think they're done.
Agreed.
I think you are now, every game is a must-win for Mizzou the rest of the way, because otherwise you're not going to be able to have the resume to go up against the other 2-loss teams in the Big Ten or the SEC. You just don't have the strength of schedule to be able to get there. But a 2-loss A&M team will have one of the best resumes in the country. So I think they would also get in. It's kind of the way that I'm viewing this. I think both would get in.
Yeah, I'm with you, though. If they lose to Alabama, it's done. If you win, you got a chance. You still need to win out.
Yeah, I think you got to win out because you're right, PK. They don't have a resume. Like, if they lose to Alabama, they don't have another ranked team or a ranked opportunity to pick up a win against somebody, because South Carolina's not going to end up being ranked. Mississippi State's not going to end up being ranked. Arkansas is not going to end up being ranked. I'm trying to think if Oklahoma's not going to be ranked. Like, there's no other quality win that you can look at. And at this point, Boston College isn't really a quality win anymore.
As of today, Vandy's the best win on Mizzou's resume.
Yeah.
And if they win on Saturday, it'll be Alabama. And that's that's likely 4-loss Alabama team.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, to your point of, like, if you beat Alabama, it's kind of like, don't get me wrong, I loved it this weekend. It was great. The Illinois won against Michigan. They're probably a 4 or 5 loss team.
I think more. I think Michigan's going to be fighting to get to
Michigan fans were like, we're only going to win 5 games this year. God, it was so great.
I think 6 or 7 is very much on the table for Michigan this year. That does not diminish what Illinois did, but that Michigan team is not what it was a year ago. All right, this one comes from the 636. Hey, guys, does the Thomas injury make the Blues rethink, second guess, not bringing back Ryan O'Reilly for 2 to 3 years as a bridge to Dvorsky? At least then they would still have a number 2 center to play up. I don't think so.
No, I mean, you don't have Broberg and Holloway if you have Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, the timeline just didn't match up. The one that I still question to this day is the David Perron decision. I think Perron could have been a bridge to some of these young wingers that you were trying to incorporate into the mix. But O'Reilly, I didn't feel that way about. Didn't feel it then, still don't feel it today. He didn't have chemistry with the guys that are still here. Like, they had to play up, what was that 4th liner's
Josh
name?
Levo.
How could you forget Levo?
No. He's in the KHL right now.
Dominating, probably.
They needed to move on. It was time. Thomas was ready to take that next step forward as a number 1 center. They were also ready to kind of move toward the future in their leadership core as well. It was time. It was time for everybody.
This offseason doesn't happen if you have Ryan O'Reilly. You're still in the competitive mode with Ryan O'Reilly on your roster. You weren't planning for the Dalibor Dvorskys with Ryan O'Reilly. So it's just hard to sit here and look and say, oh, man, you should have brought him back. It didn't make sense for where your team was at. Does it suck to have Pavel Buchnevich as a centerman along with Dylan Holloway right now? It does, but that's injuries, because if Thomas is healthy and Sundqvist was healthy, I don't think we'd be talking about either of those guys there.
Yeah, I don't see why you would have brought. Oh, what happened?
One of the top Boston radio hosts just said, sources have informed me that within the next 48 hours, Gerard Mayo is expected to be removed as the head coach of the New England Patriots.
Oh, well, Bill Belichick's been saying it's not going well because he's been calling out his players.
My God.
Okay.
Well, it hadn't been going well. Can I be honest? I'm not 100% surprised by that.
Good thing you got Drake May in there, though.
I'm asking this in all sincerity.
Bring back Belichick?
Yeah.
I think you'd have to consider it. Because he's close to the organization, you just got to bring him back and just get through this year.
How freaking awkward is that? Hey, Bill.
Can you imagine?
We bleeped up.
Oh, my God.
And I wouldn't doubt that Belichick's had the year of Kraft because Belichick's
he said on the Monday night broadcast with Manning, like, you can't call your team soft.
Yeah, he's been very critical of Mayo. Another person from the Belichick tree that fails spectacularly as a head coach, by the way.
Imagine you get fired from your job. They say you're past your prime. You go on television and you just call out your former team, and then they call you back and like, hey, we'd like you to come back.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, sources have informed me that within the next 48 hours, Gerard Mayo is expected to be removed.
I've got more breaking news as well.
Is this from Boston as well?
No, from Pete Thamel. Sources say Missouri leading rusher Nate Noel Foote will miss game November 15th against Alabama this Saturday.
Well, that ain't great, boys.
Seriously, guys, this has been like a...
the last 2 days, there's been a lot going on.
So Brady Cook is going to be playing on a high ankle sprain.
That's fine.
Which typically is a 6 to 8 week injury.
So it's a fracture,
and
apparently.
Nate Noel has a foot injury that by Wednesday of the week, of the game, they knew was so significant that he ain't playing on Saturday. So that means that he's probably going to miss significant amount of time with this, would be my guess. Woof. And now suddenly I'm starting to understand why the line is what it is. It's a 14-point line in favor of Alabama, by the way.
It's not, today's not a really fun day, guys. We should try and restart
Injuries
this
suck, dude. Injuries are the absolute worst right now. Andy Reid, by the way, will not talk about the trade for wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins as it is not yet official. Andy said, quote, I know nothing.
Come on,
Andy.
Come on, Andy.
Yeah.
Vrabel. Is that the guy that the Patriots bring back?
Oh,
if you're Vrabel, do you want that job?
Yeah, because you just got your new franchise quarterback.
Oh, I guess that's true.
Hell yeah.
So you kind of have an idea. Well, I'm assuming he likes Drake May, but he's close with ownership. I totally forgot about Vrabel. He's probably the guy you bring back rather than the Belichick one, which would be awkward.
Which would be awkward.
It'd be so uncomfortable.
I just imagine him walking back in the building and all the players like, oh, damn.
Yeah, they're like, we finally thought we were getting away from you.
Imagine the emotional roller coaster those guys have been on. Oh, finally, we're free of Belichick. And then 6 weeks in, Mayo's like, my guys are soft. Man, I hate this new head coach. Then gets fired. Oh, good. Finally got rid of that guy. And here comes Belichick again, roaming in with his beat-up hoodie.
I do wonder if maybe, like, if you're them, do you just say, you know what, it's time for a clean break? Like, let's go a different direction. Let's bring a new voice in here. Maybe you go with Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. You go with an interim head coach the rest of the way, and then in the offseason, you go out there and just hire somebody that is the best possible guy available. Or you go with, what you know. I don't know. That would be the Cardinals' typical route. But the Cardinals actually did something different this time around.
We've been hiring people from outside the organization like John Jay, Daniel Descalso lately.
Both technically are from outside of the organization.
Yeah.
You guys excited for Alan Craig to be back?
Yeah, when's Craigster coming back?
The Memphis Mafia, just all of them return.
Yeah, Skip should be back. Who else can we bring in? Any other former? Matt Adams says he wants to coach.
Oh, there you go.
Man.
He'll probably get one of the roving instructor roles that they're going to be reinserting.
I don't know what Long's
Long will be back soon.
I think he was technically in the league this year, right?
I don't know.
Did you say technically in the league this year?
I don't remember if he played in the big leagues or if he was on a minor league
when you're
deal
technically in the league.
By 2014, he had a minor league contract with the Baltimore Orioles.
Didn't they release him too?
He had an out clause. He signed a minor league contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks, played 31 games for them, but was released in May. So there you go.
So technically was in the league. Technically, he was in the league.
If you guys want to get involved to the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to do so. You guys can check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. The story that we've been talking about all day long, Robert Thomas expected to be out for at least the next 6 weeks with a fractured ankle. It looks like Braden Shin is going to take over as that top line center role. If you guys want to get your voices heard on that, the text line is the place to do so. Coming up next, though, man, it's been a downer of a show so far. Can we talk about something positive, Alex?
I don't know what.
I'm ready to say some wild things about Philip Broberg, and we'll do that next here on 101 ESPN.
Jets get it back. Lowry over to the far wing. And terrific defending by Broberg. Slides into Appleton, knocks him down. Niederreiter's going to get it back, and Fox just heavy. Shoves Niederreiter down to the ice.
What a play by Broberg there. As that's a potential 2-on-0 curves. He hustles back, goes long body, gets a stick on it. You know, it's plays like that Then when you talk to Drew Bannister about the success of Philip Broberg since he's come over from the Edmonton Oilers, everyone's just in awe of the point production, but the way he defends, the way he gets back, the way his stride just gets him to close gaps in games. What a play there to keep this a one-goal game. That would have been a dangerous chance.
No points, a -1 on the ice last night for Philip Broberg, and I'm ready to say some wild stuff about the Blues' new defenseman. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The way he kills plays, Alex, is maybe the most important thing that we have seen from Philip Broberg so far this year. Yeah, he moves the puck well. Yeah, he skates a little bit like Jay Bouwmeester in his prime. It's hard not to make the comparison. They're both really long. They both have a big stick. I don't know.
That's what you're. It looks like Bouwmeester. They're both really long. They both got big sticks. It's
long
fine.
strides. It's the comparison that we're all going to make.
You said wild things. Bouwmeester ain't wild. Let's get wilder.
Okay.
You want to start or you want me to?
I'll let you go.
Okay. I see Miro Heiskanen on the ice.
I'm willing to listen to anybody. As
Victor Hedman? Mike McKenna made that on Friday.
Sure.
Nicholas Lidstrom.
Sure. Compare him like a 1% chance, but it's in the range of outcomes, at least for him. Unlikely, but possible, I suppose.
I would put 1% on it.
Dude, this kid's amazing.
Yeah.
Every time I watch him, I grow more and more confused as to how the Edmonton Oilers screwed this up so bad. And make no mistake about it, that's what happened here. Edmonton messed up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't let a former top 10 selection as a left-handed defenseman who is 6'4", that skates like this, that has the defensive ability that he has already shown to have, that last year in the Western Conference Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals went out there and played the way that he did, and now is backing that up by looking like one of the best defensemen in the NHL, full stop. Like, I don't have to put any qualifiers on it. I don't need to talk about an age range. No, just the dude's going out there playing 20 minutes a night, playing every situation you can possibly play, and looks clearly like the already #1 defenseman on the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
They screwed this up in a miraculous kind of way. And Doug Armstrong, this was highway robbery. Dude, you should have to pay multiple first-round picks for a player that performs like this. Alex, if I simply told you, hey, the Blues, I'm locking it in. They're going to select a player next year in the top 5 that will eventually be what Philip Broberg is right now. Guaranteed, locked it in. He's going to be what Philip Broberg is right now. But you got to trade picks to be able to get into the top 5. I'm throwing everything at the table. Whatever you want, it's on the table for you.
I tried to trade Jordan Kyrou this offseason to get a top 5 pick.
That is what they now were able to have by trading one second-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
It is crazy to me what we have already seen from Philip Broberg and how seamlessly he has transitioned into this top 4 role. Alex, what have you seen from him? Because after watching him last night, the first game that we have seen him not record a point in, it was maybe as impressed as I've been from him all season.
Yeah, not record a point in, and also the first game that he was on the ice for an even strength goal against, which he was like one of 2 other players that had not been on the ice for a goal against at even strength. I'm seeing everything from this guy. Like, set the offense aside. The offense is great. Points are great. That's what wins Norris trophies in the NHL these days. But go back and watch the play that we just played for you on the return. He is in the offensive zone, and there is a 2-on-1 the other direction that Justin Falk is on an island by himself. Broberg not only gets back to get the stick in the way of a pass, but then he takes the body of the Winnipeg Jets player all the way down to the ice to where the play was killed. It was dead. Drew Bannister talked about him, I think it was after the Carolina Hurricanes game, and he said, just do yourself a favor and watch him away from the puck. Because, of course, when he's got the puck, everybody's focusing in on him. But watch it when the puck's on the other side of the ice. He eliminates areas of the ice that other guys don't have the ability to do. And what I mean by that is he can step in front of the goal crease and basically wipe out everything behind him. Why? Because of his size and his stick length. Those are areas that he's just got knowledge of the game. He can escape danger easily with his skating ability. He jumps in on the offensive side, but it's not so much the offense that gets me excited with Philip Broberg. It's that he's 23 years old, and he's got the hockey sense of a Jay Bouwmeester who was 33 years old winning a cup. He knows where to be at the right time to kill plays. And when he gets into a bad spot, much like Colton Parayko does, he is able to recover faster than anybody else on the ice because of his stick length and because of his speed.
He's a one-man wrecking crew on opposing offensive rush opportunities as well. Like that, to that play that you were talking about, that's not the first time we've seen something like this.
Yeah.
And it's not always, that one was pretty sexy. What he did last night,
everything he does is pretty sexy, man.
That was unbelievable. Some of them, though, are just, he gets in front of a player as they're getting ready to come into the offensive zone, stands him up right then and there, and then boom, rush opportunity shut down. Now we're playing defense 5-on-5.
Yeah.
It's just those little things where he just kills a play before it ever really begins. And instead of it becoming a high danger chance against, now it's just we're getting back into our structure. Like that is such a unique ability at his age and at this point in his career to be able to do that. I'm in shock when I watch this.
This is why I say Miro Heiskanen's name. And it's not because, he's the Norris Trophy, blah, blah, blah. But at 21 years old, he was already making an impact on the ice because of his hockey sense. The ability just continued to grow. And then look at his point total of how he's gone. It's 35, 27, 36, then all of a sudden 73. That 73 points came when he was 23 years old. But when you're 19 and 20 and you already recognize how to play in your own end so that you can give your team the best chance to skate out of there without any casualties against, you don't learn that hockey sense as a player. You either have it or you don't have it. And that's what makes guys top pair defensemen and middle of the order defensemen. And the fact that we're seeing this at 23 years old, and I'm with you, Edmonton screwed up on this.
So bad.
Because he was in a position, and it's tough for Broberg because you're on a team that's trying to win a Stanley Cup. And when you're 21 years old, if you make a mistake, you're coming out of the lineup. But how do you not see that hockey sense from a player and say, he's got something here, let him go with it?
And the craziest thing is, if anybody should have valued him, it's them.
Yes.
He was a top 10 selection by your organization. You clearly saw the potential in a player like this. You saw the skating ability, you saw the size, and thought to yourself, okay, if we give this a little bit of time and we develop him the right way in the minor leagues, he's going to become a star.
Yeah.
He can be a top pair defenseman at some point. That's why you select a guy in the top 10. Otherwise, you should have gone a different direction. And instead, they didn't value him to the point of him being worth $4 million. I would have moved mountains for this guy, dude. Mountains. And they said, can't do it.
Yep.
We thought at the time, because they started moving off some of those contracts, traded Cody Ceci. We're like, okay, well, that clearly means that they're not going to match on the Holloway contract, but they will match on the Broberg deal. And then they just started signing other dudes from the outside and decided, no, we're going to go this other direction. It's like, what?
Yeah.
No, your core moving forward is Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, and Philip Broberg.
Yeah.
And Evan Bouchard.
Yeah,
those are your core four group of position players moving forward. And for whatever reason, they didn't value him. They clearly didn't see what the Blues have seen in him so far. And I cannot give enough. This is a career-defining type of move by Doug Armstrong.
Yep.
Like, this is a legacy type of a move by Doug Armstrong. And the reason why I mention that is because you have set your team up, your organization up, for the next decade, potentially, with this kind of a player already ready to go. We said at the time that the Blues let Alex Pietrangelo walk. I will never forget it. We talked with Carlo Koliakovo, who said, if you let Petro walk, the moment that he walks out that door, you're going to be looking for the next Alex Pietrangelo.
Yep.
And he was 100% right, and they've been searching for it far and wide ever since.
Yep.
They've tried to piece together individual aspects of what Petro brought to the table. Hey, what he did on the power play, maybe Torrey Krug can give us some of that. What he did as a puck mover, maybe we can get some of that from Justin Falk. Defensively, what he brought to the table. Well, Colton Parayko is going to take over that role. What he brought to the table as a leadership. We're going to have Braden Shin. Like, everybody had to take a piece of what Petro was for this team. You now have a lot of that tied into one guy with Philip Broberg. You have maybe found, I don't know if he's going to be Petro long term. I don't want to put that on him. But you have found the guy that can fill the role that Petro had while he was here over the next decade. Mm-hmm. That is one of the single most valuable pieces to a contender, and you were able to acquire it in an offseason for a second-round pick. That is, I mean, as good of a move as you can have as a president of hockey operations.
And here's the other factor into it, because we talked so much about trading for a draft pick and finding a way to draft in the top 5 to get that left-handed defenseman. You know what you did in acquiring Philip Broberg? you avoided all the growing pains because Edmonton dealt with those growing pains.
Absolutely.
Edmonton dealt with, well, he doesn't really play this level. He's got to figure this out. He'll go to the minors. Then you basically go out there and acquire a NHL primed defenseman who's going to have spurts of mistakes. It happens when you're 23 years old, but you avoided 3 years of developing that player. He was developed in a system, and then you bring him in and say, you already know the basics of NHL, now play into our system. And look at how he's adapted to it. Like, you don't just adapt to this that fast. And again, I'm not talking offense. I'm talking defensively. Yeah. Playing with a guy that last season, everybody was ready to ship out of St. Louis and Justin Falk. People were done with Justin Falk. And now the Blues are utilizing Falk and Broberg as a top pair defenseman.
They've been your best pair so far this year.
They've been playing 20 minutes a night. And last night they went multiple shifts against Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. That's a top pair matchup right there. You don't find these guys. This is what sets you up for a wide open competitive window.
This is like finding the Raiders signed Rich Gannon back in the early 2000s after the Chiefs decided to let him go for whatever reason because they needed Elvis Grbac to be the long-term answer as their quarterback. This is what my childhood was like, guys.
You still sound upset about it.
Yeah, I was
some references.
I was
over here.
7 years old at the time, and I will never forgive the Chiefs for doing that. The Raiders ended up going to the Super Bowl because they got Rich Gannon late in his career, and he became a Pro Bowler. Like that's the kind of thing that this is. But Rich Gannon was 30-something at the time. Broberg's 23, man. I'm struggling to find a comparison for this kind of a move where a team just, for whatever reason, did not see the value of the player that we're talking about.
You know why there's no comparison? Because teams don't do this. You don't move on from a 23-year-old defenseman.
I can't believe what we're witnessing right now. Like, I'm legitimately in shock.
Yeah.
I said before the season, because part of it is he's really, really young. And he did not have a ton of experience with Edmonton. And they were willing to move off of him. And typically when you see that combination of three characteristics for a player, there's probably something there that you don't know about, right? There's this idea of what it could be versus what it actually is. And typically it leaves a lot to be desired when a team is willing to walk away from a player for this kind of compensation at this age when they had drafted him previously in the first round. So I assumed, wrongly, there was going to be a lot of warts here that the Blues are going to have to deal with early on. It's been the opposite, dude. He could not have been any better. Yep. I can't imagine there are many Blues that have had a better first 7 games of their Blues career than what we've seen so far from Philip Broberg.
Yeah, I mean, look at the list that he's been on in terms of just point production in the first couple of games. I mean, he was 1 point away from being with Steve Duchesne in this conversation. I mean, you're going back to the 80s and the 90s right now when you're talking about these defensemen. I mean, this is why when the trade happened or the offer sheet didn't get matched and they made a trade happen, this is why, and it came out pretty aggressively, the Blues exited out of the retool with that move. Now, there's still some growing pains that are going to take place. There's still some waiting period, but you're no longer sitting in the retool saying, well, we got to get off these bad contracts so that we can go find and get this guy. Who's that guy going to be? Well, you're going to have to draft him. You wiped all of those questions away by making one move, and that was bringing in a Philip Broberg and saying, good, our defense locked down, goaltending locked down. Now we just got to wait for our forwards.
Can you guys think of another, like, let's say he goes on to become an all-star, which feels in play right now. Again, I'm ready to say wild things about him.
All-star. I thought we were going Hall of Fame. Me too, man. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Well, what is the comparison for this? Like early 20s, very young still, has his entire career ahead of him.
Sports or in hockey?
Yeah, sports, man.
Well, and like this is the position, like to your point on him being so young.
It's like having a quarterback.
Like Parayko didn't really hit his stride till what, 20?
His first season was good, but he didn't look like
defensemen are the kind of position that like. The reason they don't grow on trees is because it takes them like 5 to 6 years to develop.
McKenna says it takes about 300 games in the NHL to figure out who you are. I mean, Parayko in his first year was a plus 28 with 33 points. And that's why people were like, holy bleep, who's this guy? Yep. But like, I mean, I don't think until he was that cup season, you really saw the potential of being a number one defenseman. And that would have been 26 years old, 25 years old. Yeah. And that's probably when everybody looked at that and said, well, not probably. The next season, they walked away from Pietrangelo because they called Parayko the alpha. But
that's different because you didn't acquire him.
No, yeah, he asked when did Parayko hit it.
Yeah, no. I was just making the point of, like, the reason that it's so unique for Broberg because it hits so fast. Like, I thought he'd be better than Krug this year, but I thought it was going to be, like, until his second contract with the Blues. That we would be having this conversation where BK's just
and that
like
still
drooling
would have been
over
amazing.
that.
I don't blame him.
That would have been a great outcome for the Blues if that was indeed the case. Somebody on the text line, by the way, from the 314 said, I agree with you all about how he looks, but are we really not expecting a bit of regression? I'm not being a jerk here. I'm legitimately asking. I am expecting regression on the points. That will come. I don't think he's going to be a 70-point player this year. Maybe he will.
For calling him a Hall of Famer, I'll give it to him.
I'm not expecting that. What I don't think is going to regress in a significant way is overall how he's playing.
Yeah.
I just think he's a really good player. He'll make mistakes. That's going to happen. But I just think he's an excellent player. What I find to be so rare with the way that the Blues were able to acquire him is age, position, and value that they gave up via trade, right? So you have a 23-year-old playing one of the most vital and valuable positions in the sport that is the most difficult to find, and they gave up a second-round pick. So that's where this becomes a little different than some of the other comparisons where, like, somebody brought up Juan Soto. Yeah, but they gave up the moon, the stars, and everything in between to be able to acquire Juan Soto. So, and he had already shown one of the best hitters in the history of baseball early
Is it
on.
Lou Brock?
Maybe like 40 years ago.
I was going to say, I'm sure I'm missing moments with that, but
Kobe being traded from the Hornets, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
But you didn't see him play
he
yet.
hadn't played, right?
He was a draft pick.
But this is...
I mean, Broberg just was one of your best players in the Stanley Cup final. Like, Broberg was the offense for you for 2 games in the Stanley Cup final. And I understand because, there's going to be some regression. There's going to be mistakes that are made for Philip Broberg. The bounces aren't always going to go his way. But, and again, we're saying wild things. That's what this segment is. But look at Victor Hedman. Like, Victor Hedman is viewed as a Hall of Fame defenseman. In his first 3 years, Victor Hedman combined for 69 points and was a -9. And then as he continued to progress, 24 years old, he got 55 points, 27 years old, 72 points. Like, you get better as a defenseman as you age, and you're putting Philip Broberg in a situation where the team's potentially a playoff contender. What happens when the roster's in the shape and the form that you want it to be to actually be in a winning window? That's where number 1 defensemen become elite defensemen, much like a Victor Hedman did.
Somebody brought up a good comparison. Brett Favre. T-Bone, I don't know if you were even aware of this, but Brett Favre was actually not drafted by the Packers. Did you know that?
No, I actually did not. I swear he was a Packer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brett Favre was drafted by the Falcons in the 2nd round. This is part of why Stalter hates his team, I would imagine.
I can't
in
blame him there.
1991. Year 2, Brett Favre was traded to Green Bay and ends up going on to, of course, have a Hall of Fame career with the Green Bay Packers. That's probably the best comparison that I've seen so far because they didn't have to give up an arm and a leg to be able to get him. Now, there was a lot of stuff off the field that went into this as well, but Brett Favre's probably the closest thing because of the position, because of the age. He was 23 years old at the time that he was traded to Green Bay and then went on to have a Hall of Fame career. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You basically just acquired your version of Brett Favre.
And that's how we
enjoy
end this.
the Super Bowl / Stanley Cup that comes along.
And that's how you get the wild statements.
Was Drew Brees this too? He was coming off an injury, though.
A little different. He was a free agent.
Okay.
Whenever he signed with the New Orleans Saints, and they had Philip Rivers as his backup, so that's why they decided to let Drew Brees hit free agency. But acquiring him for what they did at an acquisition cost that's incredibly low. There was also the real legitimate injury questions there. I think it was his shoulder where they weren't sure if he was ever going to be the same guy, and then of course goes on to be a Hall of Famer. So yeah. Congrats on the Hall of Fame.
I kind of like even a
acquisition here.
history lesson
If
here.
nobody wants to get excited, we'll do all the exciting stuff for you.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, it's time for our football pick'em reveal. We didn't have an opportunity to be able to do this yesterday because of all of the breaking news. Blues with Jake Neighbors' extension, Cardinals with 2 new big-time acquisitions for their front office and the hitting coach. Football pick'em reveal coming up next here on 101 ESPN. All right, it's time for our football pick'em reveal. We didn't do it yesterday because there was a bunch of breaking news. The Blues re-signed Jake Neighbors to a 2-year contract extension. The Cardinals announced a bunch of different shakeups within the organization. So we had to do all of that. It is time now, I can't avoid it any longer, for us to do our football pick'em reveal. If you're new to the show, you're not familiar with what we do here. Every Friday, we pick 3 games. We rank it 1, 2, 3. Very simple. You have 6 possible points every single week. After the month is over, we will then have a punishment. One of us will be punished for what happened that month with our football pick'em challenge. Alex was punished in the first month. I came into the week looking like it's probably going to be me this month, and we'll see what happened in this week's pick'em. Alex, you love going with NFL games.
Yes, I do.
You started with the NFL for your 1-point play.
My 1-point play, I'm taking the Houston Texans. I like them as the underdogs in this one, +3. I think this offense now, with Joe Mixon back, I understand they don't have Nico Collins. I think their offense is in a good spot, but I'm taking the Texans +3 as my 1-point play.
45-yard field goal attempt for the veteran. And here's the snap. Low snap. Placement made. Kick to the upright. And it is good! Yes! It is good! Yes! It is good! The Green Bay Packers have won!
Yeah, that field goal just keeps it close, eh, boys? Love me that 3-point play.
Right. So it was a nice 1-point play for you there.
I needed it, just
got started in a good way.
Confidence.
I loved the Packers in that game. And,
Yeah, you actually told me before, he's like, I wish I had the cojones to pick the Packers. And, boy, I'm glad you did. Well, I actually wish you would have done that.
Yeah, it would have been pretty similar to all of the rest
Honestly,
of the picks that I
it
made.
doesn't really matter.
Your 2-point play also in the NFL didn't quite go the same way.
Boys, 2-point play, sticking in the NFL. I'm taking on the Atlanta Falcons -3. I don't really trust Seattle anymore. I don't know if they have the quarterback that can make the big plays. I think Seattle's got a decent defense, but I think the offense is just significantly better with Atlanta.
On first down, Smith lobs one up for Walker, who dives, makes the catch. Spectacular reception by Walker for his second touchdown today.
That quarterback looks pretty damn good against that Falcons defense, my man. Geno Smith's been one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year.
I think he's been trash, but that's fine.
2 touchdowns, no picks, 200 yards through the air.
You just heard the play there. Kenneth Walker had to make an Air Jordan-esque grab to make sure that one stayed down.
Kenneth Walker's awesome,
Kenneth Walker is so good.
Top 7 running back in the league right now.
Ooh.
Feel
I think
right?
that's fair. Yeah.
Top 5 right now, it feels like. He's like,
I mean, he's as many injuries as there are.
Yeah.
He's been great. The Falcons.
Made me pay.
I still think the Falcons are a pretty good team. Might have overhyped them a little bit.
I think they're a
though.
fantasy football team.
I think the Falcons are a team that makes you want to pick them, but when they actually take the field, you don't know what you're going to get.
Can't lose that game at home against the Seahawks. That's a game you got to find a way to win. Unfortunately for Alex, they did not. He ends up losing that one. That was his 2-point play. Let's get to his 3-point play, which was also my 2-point play.
I hate myself for what I'm about to do. And the New York Jets are only a 1.5-point favorite. Russell Wilson is going to be the starting quarterback for the Steelers. I don't think Russell Wilson is very good. I do not like Aaron Rodgers.
True.
But I'm going to back him this weekend in this specific game against the Steelers. Give me the Jets in a pick that is sure to backfire against me. Minus the 1.5 points on the road at Pittsburgh.
That's my 3-point play.
Oh, I know you're both going to lose this one.
That's my 3-point play. The Pittsburgh Steelers are losing this game solely because they're putting Russell Wilson as the quarterback.
In his head, spring floor, Wilson, end zone shot, Pickens! Got it! Touchdown, Pittsburgh!
Look, any other team they would have played, they would have lost. But the Winnipeg, you want to know how you're bad if you're the Winnipeg Jets, the New York Jets? Russell Wilson had a 109 quarterback rating. That's how you know you're bad.
Hey, man, credit where it's due. He actually looked really good in this game.
Well, outside the first quarter.
Yeah, for sure.
That first quarter. Whoo.
I do not expect that to continue. But they called it the moon ball on the broadcast a million different times. He and George Pickens had a legitimate chemistry in that game. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't expect that to continue. I think that we will see him come back to earth, and when he's not playing against the New York Jets, who have clearly just let go of the rope, I think it's going to look a little different. Maybe it looks that way against New York with the Giants coming up this week, because they're not very good either. We'll get to that later. But
a little preview.
I do think that was a lot about the Jets and less about the Steelers. Steelers are going to make the playoffs this year. They're going to win 10 games because they always do that. Jets stink, dude. This team's terrible. They do nothing well. They're not a good defense. I think Sauce Gardner has taken a step back as one of the top corners in the league. Breece Hall adds nothing in the running game now. I don't think it's his fault, but the offensive line is terrible. Aaron Rodgers is a bottom 10 starting quarterback in the NFL right now. This team's terrible.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, though, he said it best yesterday on Pat McAfee's show. Momentum can build like a snowball, and it can be real fast.
That was a Ricky Bobby statement right there. He also today, they asked him, how to keep the optimism in the locker room. He said, stop listening to you idiots.
He's so bad, dude.
I might just pick them as my 2-point play, just casually, the rest of the season against them.
Yeah, I did not like that pick when I made it, and I definitely don't like it now. So Alex goes 1-2 on the week. He gets the 1 point. He's at 11 points after the first 3 weeks of this month. T-Bone went with the NFL for his 1-point play. He tried to go with one of those big lines. Didn't work.
I am going to get a little risky with it here on my first pick. Tennessee Titans have the best defense in the NFL so far this year. They have given up the fewest yards allowed per game by 25 yards so far in the NFL. Give me the Titans plus 9.5.
Second down and 10. Allen looking for Cooper. Touchdown! His first catch as a Bill goes for 6.
Looks good in the first half for you, T-Bone. And then the second half was played, and it looked less good. 34-10. Bills get a massive win at home. Titans started Mason Rudolph in this game. They didn't have much of anything going offensively
That
for
actually
them.
gave them a better chance to win with Mason Rudolph over Will Levis.
You can make an argument. They have now traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 1 catch for -2 yards in that game against the Bills. Not great. Not great, T-Bone.
Yeah, no, I think that trend of the big lines is starting to go back in favor of the favorites again. Because I think that's twice now, back-to-back weeks where it's cost me.
All right, on the NFC North matchup of the week, you picked one side over the other. How did it go?
Guys, my 2-point play, this team's lost their roar. The Lions, no Hutchinson. Their offense is going to get slowed down by the Minnesota Vikings this weekend, who have another great defense. But because Hutchinson is now lost for the season, I don't think that Lions defense is very good. Give me the Minnesota Vikings at home against the Lions, minus 1.5.
From 44 for the lead. Bates has delivered. Detroit is on top with 15 seconds left.
All that Bates guy has done since leaving the XFL and kicking that, 60-yarder against the Battlehawks in his first ever XFL game is make big kicks. He's doing it now for the Detroit Lions. Huge one there. That Detroit Lions defense is not great, but Brian Branch is, and that guy made some massive plays in that game. They were without David Montgomery for a decent portion of this one. He left with an injury and then came back. They were without Aiden Hutchinson in this game. It didn't matter. The Lions are just one of the 3 best teams in the NFL. And we keep looking for reasons as to why that's not the case. I'm done. I'm done looking for reasons as to why they're not one of the top 3 teams. They are right now. So Lions win that one. You do not cover. Minus 1.5 for the Vikings. Not a pick that hits.
What a bad start for your boy. And guys, Sam Darnold's starting to look like Sam Darnold again, which is not a deal if you're thinking of taking the Vikings a lot this year.
Yeah, a little concerned about that one.
All right, last one. You got a 3-point play. It was a bold selection, and I respect the hell out of it.
3-point play. Guys, I'm going to be feeling the pressure on Saturday. I really am. It's going to be a tense afternoon. I'm going to add to it. I'm going to back the boys while I'm going to the Fighting Illini. I will be in Champaign on Saturday. The Illini are going to take down this crappy Michigan Wolverine squad. Give me the Fighting Illini plus 3.5 as my 3-point play.
Whoop, that's a fake. And it's Arkin to tight end, and he's rumbling. Tanner Arkin all the way down to the 15-yard line. First and goal. Altmaier. Going to do it himself.
Come on, man.
Digs down low. And he's in. Touchdown, Illinois.
I got to tell you, the broadcast has to be better. They've got to show a little more excitement. You said that it was a good atmosphere at the Illini game.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell on television.
Yeah.
Did not come through on the broadcast whatsoever. That was an awesome win for your Illini. T-Bone, what do you got to say about it?
Oh, man, I'm not going to lie, guys. I had zero faith in that pick as my 3-point play. I just knew it would be great for content, and then after watching, I think it was the first quarter and a half, I knew the Illinois was at least going to cover. I didn't know if I felt 100% in they were going to win, but hell of a win by Brett Bielema. You don't turn your back on family.
That's right. That's what they say.
Got to say it in a Vin Diesel voice. You don't turn your back on family.
I can't do it.
You've just got the family part. The rest of it, aside, the family part you've got down.
Family.
T-Bone goes to 1-2, gets the 3 points this week. He has 10 points through the first 3 weeks of our Pick'em Challenge. You guys already heard I lost my 2-point play. That was the Jets. How did my 1-point play go on Saturday, though, T-Bone?
All right, for my 1-point play this week, I'm going to the college football slate. Texas, despite playing their backup quarterback, the one that is worse than the other guy, I just think Texas is the best team in the country right now. I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago, but they are the best relative to what we have to offer in college football in 2024. Give me Texas -4 against the Georgia Bulldogs.
Quinn, you were struggling, scared me away from that game.
Smith and Lovett off to the left on first down. Etienne. Trevor Etienne barrels down, dives for the end zone. Touchdown, Georgia. It's all dogs in Austin so far.
Carson Beck threw for 175 yards and 3 interceptions. The Georgia Bulldogs offense averaged less than 4 yards per carry offensively, and they put up 30 and beat Texas 30-15. That's how bad this was for the Texas Longhorns.
I've noticed a common theme in the last 2 weeks about your picks. There's usually something along the lines of, well, they're not playing their best quarterback, so I'm still going to take them. Or I don't like myself for this, but I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers and the Jets.
Every time he says, I don't like this pick, it's like, what are you doing, man?
My other pick, which T-Bone did not end up getting the audio for.
I got a sound effect for it,
I can
though.
replay for it, too. He was like, oh, the G-Man!
I took the Giants as a 3-point home dog against the Philadelphia Eagles. If you guys didn't see, 28-3, Saquon Barkley rushed for 176 yards. There has now been a video that was posted by the Eagles with Nick Sirianni sitting next to Saquon Barkley in the fourth quarter, where Nick Sirianni says to Saquon, hey, do you want me to put you back out there? You're a few yards away from your career high. And Saquon says, nah, go ahead and let the young bucks go. So they did. Kenneth Walker ends up going in there. He got 13 carries of his own. They ran for 270 yards on the ground against the Giants. I don't know what to say, man. They stink. Absolutely stink.
Not great.
He was so confident, too. They covered the previous week, and he's like, oh, maybe the Giants
well, they screwed me the week before. That's on me.
That's the thing is I said at the beginning of that clip, and I wish I had grabbed it. I said when he said, G-Man, I said, he's only doing this because he got beat by them the previous week.
He's chasing. Bad job by me. I'm chasing. I have 5 points through the first 3 weeks. T-Bone has 10. Alex has 11. I'm 2-7 this month. It's not going well. No, excuse me, 2-10 so far. Whatever.
Dude,
you're 2-7. 2-7 is right. Yeah. There's a lot of losses stacking up for your boy. I've got to be better. I think I'm chasing right now.
You think?
It's starting to feel like a pattern that I fell into last year. I think here pretty soon I'm going to need Luka to make my picks. I'm going to put 2 picks in front of him, I'll have him slap one of them or the other. And then that's the one I'm going with.
And instead, he'll look at both of them and then slap you.
That's very much in play. He's Alex, that's T-Bone. I'm VK. We do have a little bit of news to pass along. According to the St. Louis Blues, Oscar Sundqvist has officially been activated from the injured reserve. We will react to that news, discuss what it means for him, where he could potentially be in the lineup next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Ted Drew's, the famous destination to pick up that famous frozen custard off of Chippewa. It's been a St. Louis tradition since 1929. They remain a family-owned and operated business, and they were founded on the motto, our business is service. And to this day, they provide that for you, your family, your friends, when you come on out to Ted Drew's. I love the atmosphere, the environment. Everyone's out there having a great time, sitting in their cars, sitting in their lawn chairs in the parking lot, and just spending time together. It's family traditions that I've been doing since I was a young kid living on the hill, and now I get to do it with my family, bring my daughters to Ted Drew's and get that famous frozen custard. Also, you could buy it in the quart size, bring it home, freeze it, have Ted Drew's at home and all the time. What better way to do that? While you're there, walk across the parking lot off of Chippewa and check out their gift shop where you can buy Ted Drew's apparel, you could buy Ted Drew's souvenirs, even Ted Drew's gift cards. I know a lot of you are probably in that Christmas buying mode now. Ted Drew's gift cards, perfect stocking stuffer. But get out there no matter what. Build those family traditions, those traditions with your friends at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. It really is good, guys and gals.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues fell to the Jets last night 3-2, and today they've announced that Robert Thomas has a fractured ankle and he will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. And the Blues also announced just a couple minutes ago that they have activated Oscar Sundquist from IR. News in college football, according to Pete Thamel of ESPN, Missouri's leading rusher Nate Noel will miss the game against Alabama this Saturday with a foot injury. And again, the Blues will be back in action tomorrow night when they take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
So some interesting updates from Blues morning skate today. They did have Toropchenko taking the rush opportunities on that fourth line with Foxa and Kapanen. Walker was one of the extras. The big notable change, though, was twofold. One, Sonny was a part of the rush lines. He's now been activated, according to the St. Louis Blues. That's a corresponding move with Robert Thomas going on IR. Two, they ended up putting Perunovic into the lineup for Kessel. And Alex, according to Lou Korak, that appears to be something that they're planning on going with. Perunovic was running the second power play unit as the quarterback on that unit today. Bannister said, and this is a quote from, again, Lou Korak, who passed this along on Twitter, quote, "I think Perunovic, there's a good chance he's going to be a player for us tomorrow. That's one of his spots that he's got to thrive in," talking about the power play. So this is the opportunity for him. He's going to get the chance. Now it's up to him to take that chance and run with it, end quote. I can't do the thing anymore that I did with the Kapanen replacement for Nathan Walker, where I thought it was just absurd that they decided to make that change. Kapanen has taken his opportunity, and he has indeed run with it. He's played really well ever since being inserted into the lineup. So I don't want to make more of this than needs to be made. However, I don't think that you've had a problem with Matt Kessel as a part of your defensive core. In fact, I think he has been a really good player for them. I think P.O. Joseph has been a really solid player for them on the back end as well. I don't think that you needed to make this change. They're doing it, I would assume, Alex, because the power play has struggled recently. And so they say, okay, maybe Perunovic can be a guy that goes in there and improves the power play on that second unit,
I'm sorry,
which gets like 30 seconds out.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you there, but that's your reasoning why the power play needs a facelift? You're losing Robert Thomas on your top unit, and you're not touching the top unit with the exception of putting a centerman in that. Your second unit has been seeing maybe one shift on the ice after the top unit doesn't score. If you were jumbling up both units completely, I could understand that as an argument, but you're putting Scott Perunovic on a second unit that Philip Broberg was there, who, by the way, is a point-per-game player nearly, and you're going to say, well, that's going to give us life on the power play side of things? And you're taking a guy out, by the way, who plays the penalty kill for you. And your penalty kill has been bad over these last 4 games, like 50% bad, meaning 50% of the time the other power play scores.
Now, there's 2 ways to look at that. 1, he was a part of the problem. 2, you have now removed one of the players that you thought was one of your best pieces on a penalty kill that's already struggling, and now it'll only be a little bit worse.
I was going to say, I mean, sure, he was part of the problem, but you think that problem is resolved by putting Perunovic on there? Look,
it's a bit confusing, if nothing else.
It is. And Matt Kessel has been on the ice for 3 even strength goals against. So, I mean, like, has he been great? No. Has he been bad? No, I don't think so. My confusion with this is taking Kessel out of the lineup for Scott Perunovic.
Agreed.
Because those are 2 polar opposite players. P.O. Joseph is a good 2-way defenseman, but P.O. Joseph shoots the puck a lot in the offensive zone. You're bringing Scott Perunovic to add more offense to your team. The more logical, at least for me, it sounded a little Tony there by BK, the more reasonable change would be to take a P.O. Joseph out, left-handed defenseman, and put a Scott Perunovic in, left-handed defenseman, to maybe provide you a spark on the offensive side. Now
that's what I would have assumed.
Now you're putting 2 guys who are offensive-minded defensemen on a third pair that, sure, you're not getting tough matchups, but you are going to be going up against the third and fourth line of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you don't have somebody who's going to be able to at least lock down their own zone. That's the confusing part by me.
Yeah, I don't really get it, but again, last time that I complained about one of the moves that he made, it ended up working out really well with Kapanen going in there and playing well. On that fourth line, Bannister was also asked about Toropchenko, and he said yesterday was just a morning skate. Today was the first time that there was some bumping and grinding in there. Wow. Since his injury, he looks good.
Ain't nothing wrong with a little bump and grind.
T1 doesn't know that song, right?
No. What's going on at Blues
way he doesn't know
I think he's
song.
very close to playing, is what Bannister said about Toropchenko. Here's my question to you, Alex. Do you think that we see Toropchenko tomorrow, or do we see Sonny in that spot for tomorrow and then see Toropchenko in the next game and they kind of reconfigure the lineup?
If Neighbors is playing, which they said it was a maintenance day, I would assume you'll see Sundqvist tomorrow and Toropchenko probably by Saturday, only because if he's saying that was the first game he's taken bumps and grinds, Sundqvist has been taking contact over the last week, at least in practices. So my gut would say Sonny gets into tomorrow's game, plays that fourth line wing with Fox and Kapanen, and then by Saturday you decide what to do next in terms of how Sonny looked and how he recovered from that game. Toropchenko could be the easy replacement on that one.
There you go. And there's probably some load management stuff that they're doing with the lines as well. You can kind of work those guys.
And Sonny's not jumping back into a center position. Make sure everybody understands it's going to be the wing for the first few games to make sure his body can respond well to the contact that comes into play.
Positive note for the Blues, they don't have any back-to-backs for a while. The next one that they have that's a back-to-back is Saturday and Sunday, November 16th and 17th on the road at Boston and then Carolina.
Yeah.
They actually end up playing 3 games in 4 days. They've got a Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesday. Alex is really excited for that one. Then they play again on Thursday.
Are they 9 o'clock games?
No, actually, on Saturday you have a noon puck drop. Sunday 4 o'clock, and then that Tuesday is a 7 o'clock at home.
Alex doesn't complain about any starts unless they're 9:30s. Those are the bad ones.
Your next 9:30 start, boy, we got a
January,
while.
I think.
December. You've got back to back, not literal, but 2 9 o'clock starts in that West Coast Canada trip. They've got 8 o'clock against Calgary, 9 o'clock against Edmonton, and then 9 o'clock against Vancouver.
I think I looked at this. So if you're going 6 weeks to where Thomas is reevaluated in 6 weeks, you're probably talking about a couple more weeks for him to ramp back up since it's an ankle. You're probably talking about the end of November, December is when he's able to start ramping up.
Oh, maybe. I mean, in the best case scenario,
I'm just
6
saying,
weeks would be the end of November is when they're reevaluating.
That's what I'm saying. I think it was the 20th that would be the 6-week mark. Or the 26th would be the 6-week mark.
6 weeks from now would be like early December, I think.
Again, math's not my strong suit, but I thought it was November 26th was where 6 weeks reevaluated.
Count the weeks together, everybody.
And then you're talking about December. Oh,
yeah, December 3rd would be 6 weeks from when the injury took place. I think you're talking about like early January. At the earliest is probably.
I think you hope the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a great return for him.
Woo! I don't know about that. You're 2 months missing him. That's how you dig yourself into a hole. You have to dig yourself out of that hole.
It'll be fine.
Hey,
you got Philip Broberg. Are you kidding me? This guy's a Hall of Famer.
Now, that's true. But now's the time where you really find out not just what you have on your roster, but what you have in Drew Bannister. Because this is where you find out what a coach is really capable of. And I say that, I think so. Because now it's about, trying to mix and match and trying to maximize your roster. And I think this is where you're going to find out a lot about Drew Bannister and what he's able to do as a head coach with the squad that he has in front of him.
I'm glad you brought that up because you know who I think you're going to learn a lot about in this one? Pavel Buchnevich. They've been using this whole 600 win percentage with Pavel Buchnevich as a centerman. You're about to find out if Pavel Buchnevich is a winning recipe for your team if he's at the center spot. Because by the time Thomas comes back, I really wonder if you look at that and you're like, yeah, we have not been doing well and he has not been great creating offense. We need to switch this up.
We should do this as a segment tomorrow. I would say the guy I'm going to learn the most about, and I'm not saying this to be snarky, is Robert Thomas. What does the team look like without him out there? Because
BK is going to try and trade Robert Thomas after this stretch.
I'm not. I don't think he's played great hockey so far this year. I think he's a really good player. I think last year he was amazing for the Blues. He took a step that I wasn't sure we would see from him. He looked like a legitimate number one centerman for the entirety of the season, basically. I don't think he's played that way this year. I don't think that he has had chemistry with the wingers that they've put up there with him. I just don't. I haven't seen the same production from him this season that I had seen from him a year ago. And that's not even just looking at the points. The on-ice product, I don't think has been at the same level. I want to see what they look like without him, man. I want to see what that top line looks like without Robert Thomas. Because I think there were times last night where I thought he was the worst player on his own line. And that's with Jordan Kyrou, who people went into that game, and I thought he had a pretty good game last night, honestly, went into that game saying, 2 games, terrible. Get him out of there. I thought he played pretty well last night. I thought Brandon Saad had a really good game last night. I thought Thomas was the weakest point. And I didn't think he was bad, but the weakest point on his own line. So I want to see what that top line looks like without him. You know?
Yeah, I just...
Because we assume it's going to be a disaster without Robert Thomas. Understandably so. He's a legit top line center. What if it's not?
It's so hard, though, because, the 2 other players that you look at as top line are going to be considered second line players, like Buchnevich and Kyrou playing on that second line. Shen and Saad and Neighbors are going to be used as a top line in this spot.
Let's see what it looks like. I want to find out.
Yeah, you can see what it looks like. I'm
Also, maybe Shin is actually a top 6 center.
I think that's part of the Buchnevich thing. You see Shen play, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, we might have something here. But this feels a lot like what happened when Parayko was out a few years ago, when people were like, oh, this isn't good without Colton Parayko on the ice.
Totally.
I see this as a stretch to where you have more appreciation for Robert Thomas. And this is a team that has not already generated a lot of offense. And I'm with you. Thomas has had his struggles this season. Some of that, in my opinion, has been the lack of players that he works well with, not
if you're
playing with
number
him.
one center, though, you got to elevate those around you.
Totally.
And just like we look at quarterbacks around the league in the NFL, Josh Allen has not had anybody to throw to this year. The best wide receiver that Lamar Jackson has thrown to in the last 5 seasons is Zay Flowers, and he's like a good number 2 on most teams. Patrick Mahomes over the last 2 years, look at the receivers that he's been throwing to. Yes, he's got Kelsey, but otherwise, not a whole lot out there, right? Rasheed Rice for a little bit. If you're the guy that we think that he is, you got to elevate the guys that they put up there with you as wingers.
Couldn't I argue, though, that those first 3 games he was doing that with Dylan Holloway and Jake Neighbors?
I think Dylan Holloway is elevating the players around him.
Maybe.
But I think Jake Neighbors, we know, is a really good player.
Robert Thomas in those
Neighbors.
first 3 games was 4 points, and 3 of those 4 points were at even strength.
I'm with you, and you know I'm stat guy, right? You know this. I don't think the stats tell the story of Robert Thomas' season.
Wow. What a turn we have made.
I think when you watch him on a night in, night out basis, and Alex, you watch these guys as closely as anybody, I think the plus minus speaks more to what Robert Thomas has been so far this year than the points. He's a -2 on the ice. That feels about right. Slightly below average compared to what my expectations were. I don't think he's been bad. I do not think he's been some like abysmal performer. Mm-hmm. But relative to what I was hoping for coming into this season, I've been a little disappointed by his performance thus far. And that does not take away from what you're losing here. Let's not diminish this. Filling that guy's shoes, skates, ain't going to be easy. It's going to be really, really hard, and this team has a lot to overcome over the next 6+ weeks. All right, coming up next, let's dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's dive into the junk drawer. A quick one today because we went a little long talking about the Blues. Sorry about that. Alex, what do you have for us today, my man?
So, guys, I don't know how to handle this as a parent. I think I have a bully child.
Ooh.
Now, she's 2 years old, so I don't think she's really a bully. I think she just doesn't understand.
Is she bullying you? Or
yeah, she bullies
peers?
me. She bullies her mom. She bullies her sister. She bullies everybody because she's a very strong-willed child. I've been told my wife was this way. But we get notes every day from daycare when she goes that says, oh, yeah, Emma hit another kid today. Emma pushed another kid today. It's to the point where it's like if they get close to my child, she takes a swing at them. And we always talk to her. We're like, Emma, we use gentle hands in this house. And she'll even do, she's like, oh, yeah, gentle hands. But then if anybody tries to take a toy from her, it's just, wha-pow!
See, gentle hands.
So Monday at dance class, she takes dance. It's a 2-year-old dance class. So like everybody runs around, does nothing, but it's fun for them. There's a little girl that was standing in front of the mirror. And she was like, doing her toe taps. And she was trying to dance. And then my daughter walked up and just shoved her from behind, face first into the glass.
That's boring.
There's no worse feeling than sitting there watching your child push another child, and then every other parent turns and looks at you like, that was your kid? But it's like, what? Like, we talked to her, we explained to her, like, hey, she's 2 years old, she doesn't understand it. But it's a very troubling feeling.
We're doing that with our dog. Right now, we're
Your
talking
dog pushes
about
people?
No. Our son does everything he can to
terrorize.
Yeah, our dog, and I go to Belle and I say, hey, we're really sorry. He's won. It's gonna get better.
Apologizing to your dog.
Yeah,
we just tell our dog to go hide.
I just now picture BK on like his hands and knees, just looking at Belle. I'm sorry about Luca.
Well, now he wants to
Whispering.
pick her up all the time.
Oh, boy.
And she's only 10 pounds, so he can.
Yikes.
And so he's like walking around with our dog. He's like leaning over. It's not good. He puts her in his his wagon occasionally, and then just starts driving her around.
Yeah.
And then running into walls with her inside, and then she jumps out.
She's the crash test dummy. You know that.
So I've got a bully as well, but only exclusively towards our dog.
Yeah, no, mine's to humans, which is great. And they've if they have a toy she wants, she's gonna smack you for it. If you've got a toy that she has and you ask for it, she's gonna slap you for it. She's a very physical specimen. And
She's an enforcer.
I don't know. She totally is. I don't know where this comes from. But then it's like I got the emotional first child. So any little thing that my second child does, Adelaide comes crying to us. And we're like, oh, Adelaide, it's like she doesn't understand. You got to explain to her. And it's okay. And she's like, meh. And then we go into Emma. We're like, Emma, please go tell Adelaide you're sorry. No. All right.
From the 636, I like to picture my Emma with a half sleeve, a neck tat, fake cigarette candy in her mouth, leaning on a wall as everyone crosses the street to not have to walk by.
I like to picture my Emma with a toothpick in her mouth, just standing there staring. Katie sent me a video today where they were playing in the basement.
South County, take South County,
Jefferson County, even better. Katie sent me a video today where she was taking pictures of the girls in their little Elsa dresses, and it's a timeline of pictures. She said, I told Emma to say cheese, and the picture starts with her going like this, cheese, and then like it gradually goes to no, and then the end picture is her walking at her like this. I'm like, okay, cool.
There you go.
Well, we'll just we'll survive with the bully.
He's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, the Cardinals are hoping to learn a key lesson from the past 2 hitting coaches. Did they get it right this time around? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. It's time to unlock your inner champion, and the place to do so is Victory Men's Health. You can check them out today. There's 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, or the easiest way, go to online, victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com. Upper right-hand corner, a super easy way to book your first appointment. You click book now, put in your name, email, phone number, tell them a little bit about yourself, tell them BK sent you to Victory Men's Health. When you go over there, you'll be able to get help with erectile dysfunction, low testosterone, weight loss goals that maybe you're not able to meet on your own. You need a little bit of help. They can do that for you. Maybe it's something different. You want to check out their vitamin infusions. You want to try some of their red light therapy. They've got all of that for you at Victory Men's Health. For me, it was going over their micronutrient lab, find out exactly where my vitamin deficiencies were. They got me hooked up with everything that I need to unlock my inner champion, and they could do the exact same thing for you. Whatever that looks like, erectile dysfunction issues, weight loss, other services that you'd like to hear about, testosterone help, they can do it for you at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today, victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
When I say change, I think about, where we once were with Jeff Albert, and then the shift we made with Turner Ward. I think this is someone that's a little bit more in between. So hopefully that balance of messaging will be something that we benefit from.
That was Sean Mozeliak yesterday talking about the new hitting coach, Brant Brown, and why they decided to go with him for this position. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you missed it, Brant Brown is formerly one of the hitting strategists, is what they called him with the LA Dodgers. In other words, the assistant hitting coach. That's what he was with the Dodgers. He was then hired by Skip Schumacher. And Skip took him down to Miami, where he was their lead hitting coach. He then last year was hired prior to the season by the Seattle Mariners. They gave him a bump in pay and a bump in title. He was their offensive coordinator. I don't know what that means entirely, but apparently he oversaw the entire organization's hitting philosophy. It sounds kind of similar to what the Cardinals had to do or tried to do with Jeff Albert here, where it's like, it's not just you're the hitting coach for the major league club. You oversee everything that has to do with hitting within the entire organization. And that was Brant Brown's role. And he was fired 2 months into that role. Seattle did not have a good offense this year. There's no two ways about it, man. But I don't know how much of that was on Brant Brown. I think they just didn't have a great offensive lineup this season. They didn't perform before or after he was let go. So I don't know how it's going to work here, but I do find it interesting as to the why. Why did you hire this guy? And Mo yesterday said, it's kind of the midpoint of what they had with Turner Ward, who's a former player, a little more old school, see ball, hit ball type of a philosophy, and what they had with Jeff Albert, which was very much a analytic approach, like get the high velocity machines out. Let's try to swing the bat as hard as we can and hit the ball as hard as we can, get it in the air. It was very much a new modern approach to hitting. And either end of the spectrum can be problematic. If you have a player on your roster that wants more of the modern approach and you have more of the old school approach, and that's the only way that your coach can teach, well, you're missing a lot of stuff for that new school type of a player. If you have an old school type of a hitter and your guy is Jeff Albert and he's exclusively modern, new school, can't simplify things the way that he needs to, well, you have now, it's over the head of that guy that's more of an old school type of a hitter, see ball, hit ball. What they believe, they hope at least, is that Brant Brown can do both. He has the ability to talk to either end of the spectrum and everything in between. If we need to simplify things, great. If we need to cater this to all of the information to this player, awesome. Alex, what do you think about the hire? What do you think about the way that they described the type of person that Brant Brown is and what he's going to bring to the table?
The way that they described it seems like they're trying to do a different avenue. The first thought was like, man, when you bring up Turner Ward and Jeff Albert, a lot of Cardinals fans are going to be like, man, you got to be kidding me. But you're right. He's in the middle of those two. And the line that stuck out to me from Mo was when he said he's a guy that can cater to different types of teachings to whatever players are looking for. And I remember, and I think it was still when Jeff Albert was there, wasn't it Tommy Edman that it was like, man, it just feels like there's a lot of information coming at us?
It was the opposite. He said we feel like we're not prepared at the beginning of games at times.
Gotcha.
And I think that quote ended up getting a little bit more
probably
than it needed to. But yes, that was what he said.
Probably. But you had one end of the spectrum with one hitting coach, the other end of the spectrum. Like at least the way that they're selling this to us is that this is a guy that no matter the player that you have in that clubhouse, because look, depending on what this offseason looks like, you're still going to have the old school Nolan Arenados. You're going to have a lot of the younger players that need to have those advanced numbers that play into this. That was the one for me where it was like, okay, so they're focusing on a guy who can work with both ends of the spectrum, because for the last however many years, it's felt like you've gotten a hitting coach in, and this is the new method. And no matter if you like it or you don't like it, this is what they're going with. So at least they're expanding their mindset a little bit if you're the Cardinals.
And I think the best part of all this, because look, they probably did need going with someone that was kind of in the midpoint between those two, and Jeff Albert and Turner Ward makes the most sense from an organization standpoint. I think the best part that was said in that entire press conference in terms of relating to the hitting coaches, hey, he's just focusing on the big league staff. You know, he will not be a guy that was in the role of Jeff Albert, which is, hey, you're going to oversee everything from the major leagues down to the minor leagues. They've got minor league guys that are there that they trust those guys. Sounds like they're happy with the hitting approach that's going on in the minor leagues. Now you bring in someone that can help with kind of the older school guys, quote unquote, here at the big league level, and also the kids that came up through the Jeff Albert system, like a Mason Wynn, like a Jordan Walker, like a Nolan Gorman. Hearing them say that, if that's what he really is, and we'll find out as the year gets going here, yeah. That sounds like a really good hire for the St. Louis Cardinals. That sounds like what they needed to have on this roster.
They also made a couple of comments, John Mozeliak did yesterday, about why they went the way that they did with the director of player development, I think is what they're calling this. It's an assistant GM title, essentially. But I found it really interesting the way that they described this process, Alex. And most of what happened yesterday, I'm more interested in the process, honestly, than even like the specific people that they decided to hire, because we just don't know much about them. We have reached out to Brant Brown. We're hoping to get him on the show at some point this week. Looks like maybe we'll be able to get something done there. But the hire that they made yesterday, officially, for the director of player development was Rob Cerfolio. He's previously with the Cleveland Guardians organization. And Alex, they talked about how they wanted to get back to a collaborative effort in the front office. Here's John Mozeliak describing that.
It never got to the point where we felt like it was at running like at 100% in terms of collaboration. So ultimately rechanging, creating a structure that will almost mandate that, I think will be very.
And here's Mo explaining that structure, why they separated farm director from the director of player development. It used to kind of be like one role, really.
Well, so we had both in the past, but they were almost like siloed in their departments. And what we really want this to do is become almost like one. And so it's a much more collaborative strategy than two departments running parallel paths, but not really optimizing what both parties bring to the table.
So that's a lot of corporate jargon to basically say, yeah, we didn't end up getting the most out of these two different departments. Alex, I think what they're trying to do, I could be wrong on this, but this is my belief. They are trying to do in the minor leagues what they did this past year at the major league level. Really, when Ollie was hired at the major league level. I know, get your laughs off. But one of the things that they really tried was to incorporate every different department at the major league level, get all of that information to Ollie, and then have everything filter through him. So you have the performance department, right? The science, the nutrition and science department. You've got the analytical department. All of these different people. Baseball is a simple game, but there's a lot of information that goes into it. All of these different people, the injury, like the literal trainers that they've got, all of these different people reporting back to Ollie, and then Ollie filtering down a plan for his players. I think that's what they're trying to do now with their minor leagues. They had not done previously, according to themselves, a good job of getting all of that information to the people that needed it. There were times where they were all kind of working in individual projects. This happens in every company across America, where for whatever reason, different pieces of a company don't operate on the same track. So you don't get the maximum output from all of the different departments. Think about whatever it is that you do for a living. There's probably a frustration that you have that sounds very similar to this, but it's not about baseball. It's about sales meeting with the product side of things, like those kinds of things. So, Alex, I think it's a really admirable goal, and I think this is basically them saying, hey, we're finally going to operate like a 21st century baseball organization, and we had fallen behind in that regard.
Yeah, you've learned from your mistakes, and the mistakes are what put this Cardinals team in this position to where you had a lot of people doing a lot of job that probably should be designed for 5 or 6 different people, because when you're trying to handle 6, 7, 8 different things as one individual, things slip through the cracks. And now, if you're the Cardinals, you're looking at this saying it's time to focus more on individualizing roles within our organization. So one guy can focus on the scouting department. One player can focus on the director of player development. One can focus on the minor leagues while our major league group focuses on your major league. It's got to be nearly impossible to try and worry about the minor leagues and the development of all of these players on top of focusing on when they get to the majors are able to compete right away. I was trying to look at this, and I don't think they intertwined with each other, but Jeff Luna was the director of player development there for a little bit for the Cardinals, but then Gary LaRocque was the one that took over as the farm director. So, like, they had separate operations for individuals who were working in separate positions, and it feels like it all has intertwined over these last 5, 6, 7 years.
If you want me to be honest, I think Mo has just consolidated all of the power. I think that's what happened. I think it all just ended up being like, Mo's the guy. He spearheads everything, and then it filters down from there. And now I feel like it's more of a trickle-up approach, where like each individual department will have their own stuff that they're working on. They report to their department heads, and then it continues to trickle up from there. I think that's a better way to operate. You just get more done that way. We'll see. We'll see, right? This is the ideal scenario. I remember when Mo was promoted to the president of baseball operations side of things, there was a lot of talk about, hey, you're going to see more of Michael Gersh, and he's going to be more involved on a day-to-day basis. And this is going to free up Mo to do some things special projects-wise, which I think were kind of related to them heading in a better direction, what they ended up doing.
It's Gersh's job now.
Yeah, they switched the roles, right? Oh. And that never happened. And part of that was because of COVID. COVID changed a lot of things for this organization, and it all went kind of to hell because of that. But I do think some of this is just Mo accumulated on purpose or because of COVID, and it just never really shifted back. A lot of power within the organization, and now it's kind of divesting a lot of those roles onto other people throughout the organization. Now the stuff that Mo previously had on his plate, it's kind of like the Petro thing we talked about earlier, right? A little different, but kind of. Petro did everything. He was a captain. He was a guy that was going to help you on the power play. He was a guy that was going to help you at 5-on-5. He had everything that you could have all in one person. And then when he leaves, you need like 6 different dudes to be able to take on all of the roles that Petro had with the Blues. Mo knows, hey, I'm leaving next year. There's a lot of stuff that has to get done, and I'm going to need other people to take this stuff on before I leave because I'm the only one that knows what's going on day to day. So we'll see. We'll see if it works, but it's interesting.
Do you think that was a Mo decision or a Chaim Bloom decision? Because I think that's probably tinfoil theory. We got to separate all of this up. I think that was a Chaim Bloom decision. I think everything you saw yesterday in that press conference was Mo admitting his faults where he went wrong. And the fact that it was a 7-year period in which it was, I can't believe that they actually did this and never ended up doing what they did yesterday, which was kind of, to your point, start to have the trickle up rather than the trickle down. My guess was this was Chaim Bloom. And that's not meant to be like a shot at Mo Zaylock. I don't think that's the kind of announcement you get of Mo's the Pobo next year. Sure. Or beyond next year, excuse me. This is the new Chaim Bloom saying, hey, here's what you did wrong. You held on to all that power. And now it is time to trickle that down and get all these different departments and start working them together. And that's how we optimize ourselves as an organization.
I hope that's the case, because then this team is making strides in the right direction. But it can't stop with just the offseason moves in terms of the coaching staff, front office. It needs to continue. Chaim Bloom, if that is the case, Chaim Bloom needs to continue to have a voice in all of the decisions that are made from this team moving forward.
And everything that was out there was that he was the one that made this hire. He was the one that ended up hiring Rob Cerfolio. I'm sure Mo had a decent amount of input in that decision, but everything previously was, hey, he's going to hire the people that are going to oversee the farm system, because that's what he is overseeing currently, is Chaim Bloom. So we'll see. We'll see if it ends up working. But so far, I like the things that we've heard from the Cardinals with the hires that they've made, the explanations as to why they made them in the direction that they want this organization to go. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. More likely to happen coming up next year on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We will tell you which one is more likely. Let's start out with this. I just saw this quote coming out of a New York Mets end-of-season press conference from David Stearns. He said, quote, "The entirety of the player universe is potentially accessible to us. That's an enormous opportunity. I envision us taking advantage of that opportunity and being very aggressive in certain spaces," end quote. More likely, Juan Soto is a Yankee or a Met this time next year?
I'm going to say more likely he's a Yankee. If you go to that team and you get him to the World Series and potentially win the World Series, you throw everything you can at that player to keep him there. And the Mets are probably going to throw a lot of money there, but there's going to be some type of emotion tied to Juan Soto being with that New York Yankees team. So I'm going to say it's the Yankees.
I think it's the Yankees as well. He's been there. I think it's a little harder to lure him away now. And I just think the Yankees are just going to say, all right, here's our blank checkbook. You just write what number you want, and you can have the pinstripes for life.
Ken
because
Rosenthal
they just
said
got to
it
the
starts
World
with a
Series,
5.
which is unbelievable.
Per year?
His AAV starts with a 5. That's what Ken Rosenthal said.
He's a Yankee.
Yeah.
I think he's a Yankee as well, but if this comes down to money, I think he'll be a Met. If it is purely a money decision, I think he will be a Met. And I don't think this is quite the same thing as what the Aaron Judge decision was. Aaron Judge had real emotional ties to New York. He was there for a long time prior to him hitting free agency. Soto's been there for a year, dude. Yeah, it's been a great year, don't get me wrong. He also had emotional ties to Washington.
That traded him.
Sure, but they traded him because they didn't believe they were going to be able to re-sign him long term. I think there could very easily be an emotional connection to the city of New York, and he just so happens to be wearing a New Jersey with a guy that's paying his paychecks that are much bigger next year. So I think he will be a Yankee. If
Money
this
talks.
is truly a money decision, though, I think he'll be a Met.
Yeah, money talks. All right, guys, more likely to happen. By the time Robert Thomas returns, the Blues are closer to a playoff spot or closer to a top draft pick?
Well, how top?
Top 5.
I mean, that matters. Man, this is going to be a while. Say closer to a top 5 pick.
I agree. I think it'll be closer to a top 5 pick. They weren't generating a lot of offense with him in the lineup as their number 1 centerman, as a point-per-game guy. Why should I believe the offense will take strides forward when they are without their top centerman and they don't have a top 6 center on their roster?
The reason I asked you to clarify, I don't think they're going to be close to the worst team in the NHL, which is San Jose once again.
What's their record now?
5-2. They have not won a game in regulation
That's
so far
brutal.
this
They
year.
had one in their hands, too.
Yeah.
Nashville, by the way, second worst record so far this year.
Yeah. They just picked up the first win last night.
And they need to get it this year. This is a team that has to come together quickly because they're going to get old really fast. So I think they are closer to a top 5 pick than a playoff spot whenever Robert Thomas.
Yeah, I think it's closer to a playoff spot.
Wow.
I think they find a way to keep their head above water. This is going to be defense and goaltending for the next month and a half, and then you hope that you start getting some chemistry with these line combinations because there's no more juggling now. Now you can move one guy to another spot. There's no more.
You don't believe that?
I'd like to believe it. But who are you juggling?
I mean, you can go from Holloway at center position to Sonny and Foxa, Texier. There's a lot of juggling.
One guy versus 3 guys is what I mean. Like they don't have the go back to Buchnevich, Kyrou Thomas when things aren't good. You're with your line combination.
That was the one thing I liked that they were doing.
Yeah,
it still
after
wasn't
a
working.
power play, they would throw it out there.
I think you could see Kyrou up there on the top line with Shin at some point. I think you could see them bump up the centers and move Buch over. Like I think there's a lot. I think we might see more juggling over the next 5 games than we did in the first 5 games.
I think you're gonna see them I think you're gonna see them stick together for a good chunk of time over this next stretch.
T-Bone?
Guys, more likely to happen. We see a sweep by one team in the World Series, or it goes 7 games.
7.
I think this has a chance to be a classic World Series.
I don't know. I'm sensing a dud.
There's no way this is a sweep. These offenses are just both so good.
Who do you think is sweeping?
I think I could see the Dodgers sweeping the Yankees.
You think they have the pitching for that?
Yeah. I think Flaherty, Moto can get them through games 1 and 2, and they just announced Flaherty goes game 1.
Yep.
Their bullpen games, though they've been kind of fluctuating, they've had their bullpen that's pitched well, so they could get a game out of that. And then all of a sudden you look up and you just got Walker Buehler to kind of seal the deal. And as we saw in his last start, he was pretty solid. So I lean towards it will be a good series, but I think I'm going to say more likely we see a sweep.
My
I don't think this is going
hesitation is
7.
with the pitching. I just don't think that they have the pitching to be able to get this thing done in 4. I don't buy that. I think they have better pitching than the Yankees do, but I don't think they have enough of it. So I think this is more likely to end up going 7. I think you'll see some. I have too much respect for Judge, Soto, what they've been able to do, Stanton, what he's done in this postseason, to think that they're not going to get a game.
Which trio you trust more right now? Stanton, Judge, and Soto, or Freeman, Betts, and Ohtani? Or if you want to replace the Hurt Freeman with Tommy Edman.
Freeman.
If you want to replace Freeman with Tommy Edman.
Do you think we'd have that conversation?
What a wild sentence that is.
I trust the Dodgers trio better because of those top 2 guys, Mookie and Ohtani.
I think I agree with that. I trust Mookie and Ohtani
it's
more
close.
than Judge and
it's
Soto.
really close.
The funny thing is Judge hasn't done a whole lot this postseason.
Yeah. It's been Giancarlo Stanton, which didn't have that on my bingo card.
But Stanton and Soto.
Yeah, they've been amazing. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We will tell you which one is more likely. Let's start with this from the 314. More likely to make the college football playoff, Mizzou or Illinois?
Can I say neither?
Whoa.
It's
sorry,
Mizzou.
man. It's Mizzou, but man, we even talked about it. That win over Alabama, how big of a win is that for them?
If they get to 11 wins, they'll be in. The hesitation that I have is I don't know that they're going to get to 11 wins.
Yeah.
Even if they win this weekend, this team's not good enough to say that they're just going to walk over Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas.
Couldn't I say the same with Illinois, though, too?
If you believe they're beating Oregon, they should be your answer to this. I don't believe they're beating Oregon. And if they lose this game, they're done. You can't get in with their resume at 10-2.
Relax over there, Mizzou. I would say Illinois. I don't think Mizzou is a playoff team. I think they will end up losing to Alabama.
All right, you two are making this too personal.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to make the comment that first came to mind. I think Mizzou loses to Alabama. I mean, they're missing their leading rusher now, and this is already an offense with Brady Cook on one ankle that has scuffled enough. I think they lose to Bama. I think they lose to somebody else on the schedule. I think Illinois loses to Oregon, but I still think they're going to have a potential case to be made for a playoff when their only 2 losses will be on the road at arguably 2 of the 5 best teams in the country.
I'm going to say Illinois.
Yeah, suck it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. More likely to win NFL MVP this season, Jared Goff or Josh Allen?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I wonder what the odds are on this right now for Vegas.
Jared Goff's completion rate has been impressive over these last 4 games.
Jared Goff's a good quarterback, man.
And that offense, I mean, even though they're still finding ways to win, their defense hasn't been anything that's exciting. So they're going to have to win games offensively. At least Buffalo does have a defense that keeps it competitive.
Oh, they basically have the same odds in Vegas right now, 7-1.
I think I'll say Jared Goff.
I'll go Josh Allen because of the rushing and because now he's got a new weapon added into the offense. I think he is truly everything for that offense. If they don't have him put up crazy numbers, they're not going to have a top 3 seed in the AFC. So I'll go Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'll go Josh Allen as well. And I think the thing that will help him, too, is the expectations coming into the year.
Sure.
Remember, a lot of people have written off Buffalo when they traded Stephon Diggs. We thought, oh, they're probably like a 9-win team. And here they are, and we're already saying, hey, they're still a top 3-4 team in the AFC. I think it will be Josh Allen.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters, including a wide receiver trade that was made earlier today that we have not given our thoughts on entirely just yet here on the show. We'll do that for you, and we'll start looking ahead to this upcoming weekend next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley for our friends over at Circa Sports in Illinois. Alex, this is the place that we bet because, let's be honest here, man, you guys have seen my picks over the course of the year.
No bueno.
Winning in sports betting is hard. And when you win, I want to win the most money possible. You want to have those tight money line splits, and this is why we bet with Circa Sports. They recommend check out other options. They think you're going to come back to Circa because they've got the best odds possible. For this weekend, Alex, I'm going with a 3-team 5-point teaser. I've got the Ravens taking them down to a 4-point favorite from -9. I've got the Bills at +2. I've got the Chiefs at +5. That's a 3-leg teaser. It's about +150 in terms of the odds. Those are the 3 lines that I like the most this weekend. I like a 3-team teaser this weekend in the NFL.
I like it. You're building it to bring in the most money. Circa Sports, they keep as little money as possible on those big bets. They also make sure they tell you to go check out other sports betting apps because they're so confident that when you compare the lines, you'll be back to Circa Sports Illinois. Plus, if you have any issues, which you don't very often, but you're always speaking to a person with the Circa customer service. Download it today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues fell to the Winnipeg Jets last night 3-2. They'll be back in action tomorrow night when they visit the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for puck drop at 6. And Blues also announced earlier today that Robert Thomas has a fractured ankle and he will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. And they also announced that they have activated Oscar Sundquist from the injured reserve. And in college football news, Pete Thamel of ESPN reports that Missouri's leading rusher Nate Noel will miss the game at number 15 Alabama this Saturday with a foot injury. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Let's start out with the big news from earlier this morning. Late last night, actually, the Chiefs and the Titans came to terms on a trade that is sending DeAndre Hopkins to Kansas City. It's a 5th-round pick. I believe it has the potential to be a 4th, depending on playing time. And if the Chiefs get to the Super Bowl, if they do, it becomes a 4th-round pick. Not a whole lot to give up for DeAndre Hopkins. Alex, what do you think of the move? Does this give the Chiefs enough in terms of the weaponry to go win another Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, absolutely does. It's DeAndre Hopkins, and I know a lot of people will say he's old, he's not the same player he was. That's fine, but give me 5 games of DeAndre Hopkins with Patrick Mahomes, and you're talking playoff run. That's the exact weapon that they would need because Mahomes and the Chiefs always find ways to get the best out of these wide receivers that people think they're done with. I'm so glad that they made that move. I was hoping it was Kupp. Sounds like it would have been more expensive than Kansas City was willing to pay, but you're talking about the Bills getting Cooper, the Chiefs getting DeAndre Hopkins. I am praying that Cooper Kupp goes to the Baltimore Ravens because then we are in for one hell of an AFC bracket in the postseason.
I find the move interesting because DeAndre Hopkins is a big name and someone that, like, you look last year, had 1,000 receiving yards and probably would have gotten there the 2 years prior in Arizona, if not for injuries and suspension.
Yeah.
But I look at what's been going on with him this year, and it's been weird, you know. And I understand. Look, they've got Will Levis, they've got Mason Rudolph.
I feel like it's pretty easily
but he had
explained.
1,000 yards last year with Will Levis as his quarterback. So it's not like it's just been it's the first year with Will Levis. Well, he played well with him last year, and he's coming off of what he had, which was a knee sprain early on. I am interested. I can see where this doesn't work out for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it will because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the world, and we'll see him take those guys to the next level. I do find it a little bit interesting, and I'm curious to see what he looks like in Kansas City because it's been weird in Tennessee this year.
Don't forget, Tannehill started the first 10 games of the year last year, I believe it was. So he did have half of his season with Tannehill as well. That was thrown to him, and that's a different situation than playing with Will Levis. I also think Will Levis has just been figured out this season, and they don't seem to have any options. I think you're going to see something similar to what Amari Cooper is going to do for the Bills. Amari Cooper was just done. I think wide receiver maybe more so than any other position in the NFL, and you can hate them for this. It's understandable. They have a little bit of diva in them, and when the quarterback isn't getting them the ball, they shut down. They just stop trying at their full capacity because they are so dependent on that quarterback to get them the ball. Look at what Devontae Adams was over the last couple of seasons in Las Vegas. I think you're going to see a really good version of him in New York. I don't think it's going to be enough, but with Rodgers, if Rodgers can become the player that they want him to be, he's going to be good there. I think Amari Cooper's going to be awesome in Buffalo. He stunk in Cleveland because their quarterback was horrific. And I think the same thing's true for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think he's going to put up crazy numbers, but I think he can give you 60-plus yards a week, and that's what the Chiefs need, dude. They just need somebody that can be consistent for them. I will be curious. One thing to monitor. Patrick Mahomes has not had a player that wins this way. What I mean is he typically wins with guys that create a ton of separation. Think about all of the receivers that he's had so far in his NFL career. They're guys that create separation either against zone coverage, that's Juju Smith-Schuster, that's Travis Kelce, or guys that are unbelievably fast and create separation against man coverage. Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, Sammy Watkins. This is different. This is a guy that doesn't create a ton of separation against either of those two coverages. He wins with physicality. He wins at the catch point. He wins 50-50 balls. I've never seen Mahomes play with a guy like that, not at this caliber. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust to one another. It will take some time, but I think it's going to be a really good move for the Chiefs.
Gives him a hell of a weapon, though. Somebody you could just lob the ball up to and comes down with it, which is something that he hasn't had. You know he can win the other way. Now what does he do with this?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. All right, next thing up here. I do want to ask you guys about the Rams because you brought up Cooper Kupp, who has been involved in some of these trade discussions, and he acknowledged as much yesterday, saying, hey, I am where my feet are. Right now, I'm a Ram. That's what I'm focused on. Well, they play the Minnesota Vikings tomorrow night. Thursday night football.
Ugh.
Dub.
Really?
T-Bone, I'm going to start with you. I want to get your thoughts on this as well, Alex. Is this their last stand? If they lose this game and fall to 2-5 on the season, do they start trading off assets in that long 10-day stretch before their Seattle game?
Yes. I think right now Les Snead is on the mindset of, I don't know if they're sellers, but they should get out of the deal with Kupp just because I think they know that you're getting to the end of his career potentially where he can't stay healthy. They need guys that are healthy and they can get an asset for him. But I'm not sure Sean McVay's ready to commit to that because I think Sean McVay still believes he can win when they're healthy. So I think if they lose this week, I think it will be the kind of the rug gets pulled out from Sean McVay and they say, hey, we've got to sell. We've got to get some assets for some of these pieces that we've got. I think you'll see them trade Cooper Kupp if they end up losing.
Yeah, I'm under the same precedent. I think you've already seen them say that this one's done, and as much as Sean McVay would like it, they're probably looking at this as, hey, we're making moves. If you go out there and win, maybe you can change our mind, but we're making moves as it stands right now.
It's a huge game, man. A huge game. Thursday night football, you're going up against the Vikings who are coming off of a big loss. They're a 3-point underdog, the Rams are, on Thursday night. Feels like a spot I would take the Vikings on.
I don't know how the Rams are scoring points against this defense.
I don't either, man.
What do they do? Well, how are they going to beat them?
Kupp's got to be amazing.
Yeah.
They need a big game out of Cooper Kupp, and they need Kyron Williams to rush for 100 yards. And if you can do those two things, not easy. Neither of those two things are easy. You could potentially win this game 23-17. That's the formula, though. But I also don't know how they're stopping the Vikings offense.
Sam Darnold. He's been looking like Sam Darnold.
He hasn't been looking great, but he's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Jordan Addison. He's got some really good weapons. It sounds like TJ Hawkinson might play tomorrow night. He might return as well. Not an easy spot for the LA Rams. All right. Which NFC team, in your guys' opinion, is most likely to overcome their current injuries and avoid the year from hell outcome? The Bucs, who lost Chris Godwin for the rest of the year and have lost Mike Evans for an extended stretch of time with his hamstring injury, or the 49ers, who are without right now Deebo Samuel, who's recovering from pneumonia, which apparently he had on Sunday. He had to go to the hospital for that. They had fluid in his lungs that they had to drain. Jesus. And they don't have Brandon Ayuk for the rest of the year, who had an ACL tear and more in his knee. Which team is more likely to overcome their injuries, Bucs or 49ers, Alex?
49ers. Because at least the 49ers have an area that they can still look at and you say it keeps us in games, and it's their defense. The Bucs have offense, and that's it. They've allowed the most points in the NFC this season. They don't have a defense that scares you anymore. And so how are they winning football games? Well, they're basically playing shootout football to where they're scoring more points than you. And if I don't have Chris Godwin for the rest of the season and Mike Evans is dealing with something right now, I don't know how that offense can maintain their dominance like they've been.
And though Brock Purdy's not a great quarterback, he doesn't turn the ball over like Baker Mayfield does. And that's a killer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it is San Francisco. You know, I think they can survive without Brandon Ayuk. They can buy their time until Deebo comes back. Juwan Jennings, who was out, played pretty well well in the first stint when Debo had the, calf or hamstring injury.
And it sounds like he's going to be back this week, which is a big one for him.
And they've got another big reinforcement coming in Christian McCaffrey.
Eventually.
Maybe.
Who knows?
But if he does come back,
teams would love that.
If he does come back, they've still got a decent defense. They'll still have enough weapons around. Brock Purdy, for me, it's San Francisco.
I agree. I do think it's San Francisco as well. This sucks because the Bucs were a fun story, man. 4-3 on the season now. They started out playing really well in that game against the Ravens and then just ran into a buzzsaw. They had no ability to get stops. Now you're without the two of the best receivers in the NFL so far this season. And their upcoming schedule is just brutal. The next 3 games are the Falcons, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. Good luck. You're probably 4-6 at the bye with your season spiraling out of control. No wide receivers really to speak of. And you just hope down the stretch you're able to get Mike Evans back, and then maybe he can get you into some kind of a wild card spot. They would be much more interesting if they were in the AFC.
Yeah.
If the Bucs were in the AFC, maybe they could find a way to get in at 9-8. NFC, that's going to be tough.
They played a brand of football that needed to stay healthy, required health, because how dominant they were offensively, but defensively they were flawed.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we're going to hit the BK and Ferrario Rewind, close it, put a bow on this thing here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Hey, if you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
Earlier today, we had the pleasure to catch up with Craig Berube, former head coach of the St. Louis Blues, now with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's going to be coaching against the Blues tomorrow night. You'll hear that game right here on 101 ESPN. Alex will have your pregame coverage tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Alex is out tomorrow. T-Bone will be in with me. Alex is doing great. We just going to have one day between me and T-Bone. We'll see if T-Bone makes it out of that one alive. Alex, final thing here before we get out of here.
Should I plan on not coming back on Friday?
Robert Thomas out for at least the next 6 weeks. Fractured ankle.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the Blues? We're going to talk about this more tomorrow, but what does this mean for them?
It's a massive blow. I mean, this is a guy that does everything. Even if he hasn't started off the best, he's still a near point per game player, and he's still playing 22 minutes a night against some of the other team's best players. You're going to have to make up for him in a different way. Bannister said it earlier today. You don't just replace that player who does everything. It's going to be a pack mentality. It's how the Blues have always operated. I think for the first few games, you can run off adrenaline alone and being like, hey, we don't have him. We're going to step up to the plate. How do they look 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games into not having Robert Thomas? This team is going to have to resort to being a stingy defensive team. You guys are going to have Ken Hitchcock tomorrow, who in 2015, 2016, the Blues lost Jaden Schwartz. And Schwartz was, I think he was like 33 points in 40 games. He was one of their best players on the top line. And they still found a way to be a top team in the Central Division. But you know how they did that? They were top 5 in goals allowed. They had 2 of the best goaltenders in Jake Allen and Brian Elliott. And their special teams were dominant. All areas that the Blues are going to have to shift to.
So, of course, the Blues going to Scott Perunovich as one of their 6 defensemen tomorrow. So we'll see what that looks like for them.
That's how you navigate?
Sounds like Oscar Sundqvist is likely to be in the lineup at some point over the next few days. Don't know if that's going to for sure be tomorrow or not, but Sonny has been activated from the IR. That was the corresponding move with Robert Thomas being placed on IR earlier today. We will talk plenty of Blues tomorrow. We will talk to Ken Hitchcock. We will talk to Joey Vitale tomorrow as well. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys then. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.